what interests me is just like what interests everybody else. It's just sort of what feels real.
FMT Insurance Studios. Welcome to a Thursday edition. How you doing this morning, Roz? I bounced when I said that one.
Yeah. Just be glad I'm here.
Yeah?
Yes. I'm just tired.
Are you now?
Yeah, I'm just tired. Yeah.
No,
Yes.
no, tired.
You know, but nobody wants to hear that. So, like, oh my God, I'm doing great.
Yeah, that's right.
I'm doing fantastic.
That's
How
right.
are you, buddy?
We've been up since 3 a.m.
Yeah.
We have two pots of coffee in us each.
Woo!
That's right.
Woo!
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's what it's about on a Thursday.
It's a Thursday edition. I got some good headlines coming up here. I have some good stories we need to go through. We've had a lot of guests over the last couple of days, so I think now's the day that if I speak in the third person here, Mr. Henry can take a full dive into what Eddie was talking about yesterday.
Why don't you talk in a Scottish accent?
I don't know how to do Scottish very well.
Like the whole show.
I really don't.
Or just the first hour. Every hour can be a new accent.
Scottish, everything in Scottish sounds like a question, doesn't it?
Yes.
Yeah?
Yeah.
I'm not even going to attempt to
I know.
accent.
Me either. Mine's pretty bad.
Yeah.
Mine's really bad.
All right, let's do that. If you got a good Scottish accent, or maybe you're just from Scotland, call in. Crown Plaza call number 865
I'll give you something. I'm in that mood. Like, I don't even care right now.
Right.
So just give me your best Scottish impression, and, you'll go to the Tennessee Smokies.
Yeah,
Like,
there you go.
why not? Right?
865-888-8255. It's 865-888-8255 or 888-TALK. Call in and tell us that just call in and tell us that the Mueller report exonerates Trump in a Scottish accent. We'll give you 4 tickets to the Smokies or something.
Like
Yeah,
I like that. Well, what else? You do good accents.
No, I don't. See, you say I could do good accents because
Just
they're so terrible and they're funny. That's why.
Yes. That's exactly where I was going with that. God, you're so smart.
Yes. That's why they listen to this show.
Right.
That's why I'm so smart. Hey, a bunch of headlines I want to go over today. At some point, I would like to touch on and get the audience reaction. This is something I just brought up casually yesterday and never really got the reaction to. Knox County may reportedly prevent taxpayers from seeing police videos. We can go over that if you want to go over, let's see, the state Senate here fails to recall heartbeat bill. I had a bunch of information come to the Real News Gmail account yesterday. One more time, too. If that's where you'd like to interact with us, it's easier for you through email. Just send all this stuff to it's realnewsradio@gmail.com. Most anything we do here is Real News Radio wherever. realnewsradio@gmail.com. We get a lot of documents there. We receive a lot of videos there speaking about the recode situation going on in Knoxville. This is going to be a strange way to tie this together, but I actually have a video clip from Julian Assange. It's about 2 minutes and 30 seconds 9 years ago that oddly enough paints a interesting picture as to, I think, where we might be or end up, or at least a question we need to ask for Conspiracy Theory Thursday. Julian Assange poses the question 9 years ago saying that this might be the last free generation. The last free generation. Now, what he means by that is the last generation that has a genuine voice in representation. Local politics, national politics, wherever. And he ties...
We're all screwed!
There's Roz's commentary. We're all screwed in a little bit, right? He ties this together, obviously, with the push for AI. He ties this together with the push for, I don't know, somehow melding your consciousness into a CPU and uploading that into some virtual reality. We may be there now already. Who knows? I think what he's more practically speaking about, though, is the overtake of either the state itself i.e. government institutions, government entities, or corporations becoming so large that that's going to overwhelm everything. And what Julian Assange is talking about is this tendency, this feeling, this mentality almost that you must abide, you must acquiesce, you must somehow assimilate into the system lest the system leave you. Do you understand what I'm saying? You must become a part of the system, whatever that system is, whether it's Amazon or whether it's the American government, or else you're going to have to become a prepper and live on some plot of land somewhere out of the back of a bus. You get what it, right? I'm not saying that's true. I'm just saying I think it's a decent topic for Conspiracy Theory Thursday. I also have another very interesting take for Conspiracy Theory Thursday that I might do in the beginning of the show here because I promised Eddie yesterday what we're going to get to today, and I will. We're going over all the new Democrat proposals to change America for the better in 2020. For the better in 2020. We're talking Green New Deal and the elimination of fossil fuels, open borders, abolishing ICE, letting convicted murderers and terrorists vote, abolishing the Electoral College, stacking the Supreme Court with activist judges, curtailing the Second Amendment, free college, student loan debt forgiveness, universal health care. And don't you, Real News audience, don't you dare even start to ask how we're going to pay for all this, you anti-American pessimists. I'm telling you. Don't you bring, if you Real News audience try to bring your logic into this conversation right now, ooh, this show is about feelings. It's not about facts on the show. You've known that from day one, all right? We're going to go over all that. I kind of want to start that conversation. We're going to do this after the first break. I kind of want to start that conversation with what I have now stumbled upon, I think is the most groundbreaking piece of analysis that has ever come out there. Here it is, okay? The Russia collusion conspiracy is actually a Republican-created conspiracy. That's pretty mind-blowing, isn't it, Roz? She's looking at me like, I have no idea what you're talking about. Obviously, I'm joking.
No, it actually is.
Right now, I mean, it's worked out so terribly for the Democrats at this point. Everything.
That could be a thing.
I mean, I'm being a little bit for real here. It's worked out so bad for Democrats that you may as well start to think to yourself, hold on, dude. No Democrat has won on this. There's not a single decent talking point that's ever come out of this. It's so bad that it's pushed Bernie Sanders into saying the Boston bomber should have voting rights because he needs some other talking point.
Yeah.
The Russia collusion conspiracy is starting to look like a Republican-made conspiracy. Is it not? Let's entrap the Democrats in this whole thing that Trump stole the election from
like
Russia.
Where your mind's going,
and
buddy.
They'll run with that for 2 years.
Yes.
And then they'll get so wrapped up in their own fabrications, they must prove the previously fabricated reality. That'll push them into the next 2 years. They'll have no other talking points other than the one that's already been disproven. That'll roll them into 2020. They'll still be talking about something that has been empirically disproven by the time they need to put up a presidential candidate. And then by the time it comes to vote, their voting base will think to themselves, I don't even know what I'm voting for. I know what I'm voting against, but voting against has already been proven untrue. So what am I voting for? I'm telling you, Russ, I don't actually believe that some Republican think tank out there put this in Trump's lap, and he was like, yeah, go for it. That's
I kind of do now. I kind of do now.
Right. I was actually watching the South Park episode last night. If you want to follow along, it's called Mystery of the Urinal Deuce. Yes, that's a real episode title. The premise is that one of the children wanted to go play outside, so he went number 2 in the urinal, and the janitor had such a big stink about this. The entire thing was now wrapped up in the government itself. The federal government was trying to figure out which one of these kids did the dirty. And so what it ends up becoming is that the Mystery of the Urinal Deuce is now a part of the 9/11 conspiracy. And at the end of that episode, they say, the 9/11 conspiracy is actually a government conspiracy, the whole false flag thing, right? But the idea being is that some part of Americans need to believe that American government is that powerful, because if they're not that powerful, it looks like they have no power at all. If they really can allow a bunch of, terrorists to come in here and steal a couple of planes, then the American government really doesn't have much power at all. And I thought to myself, goodness gracious, what if I tried to apply that same principle to what's going on with this Russia conspiracy right now? It's worked out so terribly for Democrats. What if some Republican concocted this whole scheme to begin with and said, hey, they tried to do this to John McCain before. There was never any evidence with it with John McCain. They would definitely believe it if it was Donald Trump that was doing it, though, right? So let's let them run down this Donald Trump chain. What if we could even get the FBI wrapped up enough that they actually did something to try and prove this? That they actually went to the FISA court this time? That they for real surveilled some of Trump's people? Like, for real, legitimately put surveillance mechanisms on some of Trump's people, and they did, and then took it and tried to run with the entire thing, and lo and behold, Mueller himself, the Golden Knight, that was supposed to prove all this stuff true. He's the one that comes on the back and says no conspiracy, no underlying charges at all. Well, what do you have left? I don't know. Obstruction? It's just, I'm telling you, Roz, it's a bit too much. Anyways, we're going to get into all that. Some stories I'd like to start with after this break. I say all the time that the leftist theology is going to quickly become cannibalistic. The leftist theology is it's going to collapse upon itself. And not because we're doing anything about it, just because it's inherently self-refuting. The philosophy is circular. Well, here's a headline. There was a cafe. I don't know where this is. Let's say San Francisco. It's from pluralist.com. I'll figure it out. There was a cafe, a feminist cafe, that was charging men an additional 18% tax for something called a man tax. A feminist cafe charging an additional 18% tax for a man tax. Now, what happened to that cafe? Well, as you might think, it went out of business. I got this headline from some of my libertarian friends, Sherry Voluntary and the like, saying, wait. That's surprising to you? You purposely exclude half of your potential customers and you're surprised you go out of business? There's also another headline here from College Fix I might take the next segment doing. University hosts no whites allowed faculty and staff's listening sessions to promote inclusivity. So you're promoting being inclusive by being exclusive. I get it. I understand. Now I'm following. 7:20 in the morning. Hit this break. Be right back.
About this love and no useless. A man no check not you oh now there's no sound. We all live underground.
Facebook, what y'all talking about? That's pretty groundbreaking, isn't it, y'all?
So share.
The Republicans now are the ones that started the Russia collusion conspiracy. Oh, man, what a time we live in. It's so much fun. Redheads? Bob, what are you talking about? How many Knox County sheriffs are redheads? Are they? Oh, John, but if you're still in here, man, I'm going to be for real with y'all. That whole school vouchers thing, and I got so much people, not so much people, but I had at least 2 people yesterday hit me up on the Real News Gmail, specifically pertaining to Zachary. I don't know how I'm going to even handle it yet, man. That's an issue that people are so inflamed about. Here's what I may do with that issue. If y'all want to bring it up, I may just let the audience go off on that and give me their opinions. That's the kind of issue that I want to know the intimate level, behind-the-scenes conversations from beginning to end through all the committees, subcommittees, floor votes, all of it, before I make any comment on. That's just, people are on fire about that, man. John's talking about the, I may have missed it, but if you guys already addressed the state house bill regarding school vouchers. John, that's specifically the one that Jason, or rather Representative Zach, was taking so much heat for yesterday, right? Something to the effect of, at least the Twitter responses I saw were accusing him of only being concerned about his district, which, I don't know, man, depending on how you feel about representation, that's usually what representatives are supposed to do. Or you can go with the other perspective and say that, hold on, Zachary's only concerned about it helping his kids, but if it hurts the rest of the state's kids, he doesn't have a problem with it. I don't know. I'll play you, hold on. Twitter.com. I'll play you Zachary's response to that.
Well, I don't remember my Twitter password, computer, because I don't do it. What is this? Well, dude. No. Yeah, I knew it had to be one of those. Eric. I'm not necessarily familiar with that. But no matter where it goes.
$7:25 in the morning. Welcome back to Real News. Roz and I were just jamming a little bit of that song. Ain't no problem liking that song. I mean, there's a little bit of a problem, but ain't no real problem.
Just a little bit. It's got a catchy little beat to it, though.
Yeah, you want me to embarrass myself real quick, Roz? It's a lot better than my fascination with K-pop. I got no problem admitting that.
What?
Dude, I love this K-pop stuff.
That weird Japanese stuff?
Yeah, it's Korean stuff, but yeah. It's,
tomato,
yeah.
you know.
Oh my
whatever.
God. Yeah, it's weird stuff. We can agree on that. Yeah, it's super weird. All right, let me get into this headline here. Ground Pause a call number. Got a call on that right now. 865-888-TALK. It's 865-888-8255. Story of the day I'm going to get into is the new Democrat proposal for everything they're trying to change about this country. They say for the better. I'll get to that in a minute. My bigger story for the day is, hey, Democrats are really frustrated trying to figure out what to do with this whole impeachment thing, and it's such a bad play for Democrats. It's starting to look like the Russia collusion conspiracy was actually a previously concocted Republican conspiracy to set up the Democrats. The best analysis I've ever had on this program. Hey, real quick here so that we can do the next 4 minutes. This is a silly headline for me. That's coming from pluralist.com. Feminist cafe that charged 18% man tax goes out of business. Really? Really? Groundbreaking. A feminist-owned and operated cafe that made headlines around the world after introducing an 18% quote man tax on male customers will be closing its doors at the end of the month. I think that's probably the whole story right there, isn't it? I don't need to laugh about this story too much. I don't know what else you think was going to happen. Handsome Her is the vegan establishment that's located in Melbourne, Australia. Handsome Her will be going out of business on April 28th, according to an announcement on its website. In a lengthy Facebook post, the cafe delivered a heartfelt message to its patrons, which I suppose would probably just be females, saying, when we opened Handsome Her in 2017, wow, really just 2017? Well, that's kind of sad. Anyways, we expected that perhaps we might make a stir through our brazen public discussion of structural inequality and oppression. Is that what you were doing, though? I mean, I'm not sure. I'll finish the statement, okay? The statement reads, the man tax blew up the internet in an idea that we didn't think, goodness gracious, got 3 callers, an idea we didn't think was too radical, yet the world responded by showing us how fragile masculinity is and solidified the necessity for us to confront and dismantle patriarchy. All right, I'm just... Let me try. I'll get through this statement one more time because I stopped so much because every other word was grating on my nerves. Here it is. We opened Handsome Her in 2017. We expected that perhaps we might make a stir through our brazen public discussion of structural inequality and oppression. The man tax blew up the internet, an idea that we didn't think was too radical, yet the way the world responded showed us how fragile masculinity is and solidified the necessity for us to confront and dismantle the patriarchy. Okay. I don't know how much you want to break down first. If you want, do you want to start with the whole wage gap theory? Or really, if you want to call it the gender wage gap myth? Have we done that? I'm pretty sure we've done that in the show, right? The whole idea that, I don't know, and you've heard this in America too. Women are paid 77 cents for every dollar a man makes. Now, that's an aggregate figure. So the idea being is if you take all men that are employed in America and all women that are employed in America, across the entire spectrum for everything that's accountable, yes, women in general on average make 77 cents and men in general on average make $1. Now, what are you saying, Mr. Ernie? What I'm saying is any statistician worth their salt, any philosopher, any psychologist, any sociologist is what I'm really trying to get at here, that actually knows what's going on, understands that there's a myriad of variables that make that statistic make sense. Most importantly, it's been illegal in the United States for several decades to pay a woman less than a man for the same job. We get that, right? It's been illegal in Australia to pay a woman less than a man for the same job for several decades as well. In every developed nation in the world, that has been a codified law on the books for decades. You cannot legally pay a woman less for the same job than you can a man. Man, okay, fine. Even if you don't want to accept that, let's draw this hypothetical to the end. If it were true that you could pay a woman 77 cents for every dollar that you would pay a man, let's ask this question. If I'm running a corporation, why don't I just hire all women? I'd save a lot of money. I'd make my shareholders a lot more money, wouldn't I? Man, I'd pay dividends out. Come on, man. Why don't I just hire all women? If I have to pay a man $1 for a woman for the same job for 77 cents, why don't I just save that difference? If that stat is true. Of course, then we have to get into the whole complicated argument of men take more. You know, do you know how many jobs, the percentage of men that hold the jobs in jobs that could cause you to have a risk of death or a risk of injury? It's like 98, 99%. Do you know how many jobs are held in the nursing field by women? It's a very, very high statistic. There's a reason why there are statistical variables that do not make sense. There's a reason why you have to consider the rest of the variables. More importantly, though, is anyone following along why I say all the time that this philosophy is going to become self-refuting? Where they say that really what this all was about is it's not that you're charging men an extra 18% to come patron your store. If I want to go get a cup of coffee, I have to pay an extra 18% tax for the same thing that a woman is getting. I'm just not going to show up to that store. Does that have something to do with my fragile masculinity? Does that have something to do with me perpetuating the patriarchy in Australia? Would that have anything to do with me in doing the same thing in America? No, man. It would have to be. I don't want to spend more money based upon my sex. Now, handsome her might say, "Oh, that's the exact point we were trying to prove." I don't know. Handsome her took aim at the backlash over his decision to institute an 18% tax on male patrons, sarcastically calling themselves the evil, discriminatory, man-hating. Oh man, I can't even say that word. Man-hating people, they say, who charge men more. Who didn't you know the wage gap doesn't even exist? Yeah. I don't know, man. I guess what I'm really saying is I see someone like my mother. I see someone like my sister. I see someone that fully culminated in my wife of what a truly strong female individual is, an empowered, intelligent, capable person that's more capable than I am of literally almost anything. My wife is more capable than I am to do literally anything on this earth. I don't know, what, can I beat her in like a 10-yard sprint? Possibly. But everything else, the women in my life are far better at than I am. These are strong, empowered women. These are not victims. The women I know are not victims. They don't have a sense of victimhood. They don't need to be seen as weak. They don't need to be seen as what this new age of feminism is trying to push, that they are being pushed down or held down by somebody else, that they need the help of somebody else, of another sex or someone bigger or greater than them. They do it themselves. This new push of feminism has cemented and solidified in our youngest females in this nation that they are victims, that they are weak. And I'm telling you women right now, no, refuse to accept that ideology. Refuse right now. don't know, man. I thought we passed by this, man. 7:33. We're late for this break. Be right back.
Brought to you by
Y'all want a news update?
Teacher pay raises are a little closer to becoming a reality. The Knox County School Board has approved a proposed budget that includes a 3.5% pay raise for teachers, and that's the biggest in years. The money plan also includes funding for some school improvements in education at schools considered to be at risk, and initial steps for 3 new elementary schools to be built. All this has to be approved by the Knox County Commission before it goes forward for fiscal year 2020. President Donald Trump has tweeted about the school voucher debate that's going on in Tennessee state legislature. The governor's plan would make a way for kids to use state money for private school if those students qualify. President Trump's input: the great state of Tennessee is so close to passing school choice. All of our nation's children, regardless of background, deserve a shot at achieving the American dream. Time to get this done. The state health department has released a few more details about the case of measles recently diagnosed in East Tennessee. The patient doesn't live here, they say, but spends time in East Tennessee. And if you were at the Speedway on North Charles Severs Boulevard in Clinton on April 12th, anytime between 5:30 p.m. and 8 p.m., you need to take note of any measles symptoms you may experience. And now you're up to date. I'm Tanya Stout-Brown on Talk Radio 92.3 and AM 760, Knoxville's talk you can trust.
This is Steve Vaskart of Wealth and Retirement Strategies. I help baby boomers create a dependable retirement plan. My mission statement is to teach you the wisdom of how money works for better stewardship, to potentially have more, to give more, and to leave more. If becoming a better steward of your wealth is important to you and you need a dependable retirement plan as well, call for my video that explains all the ways I will help you. Please call 691-1211. That's 691-1211.
This Fox Business Report is brought to you by Sandler Sales Training.
From the Fox Business Network, Microsoft's cloud business continues to grow, and it was made.
Oh, goodness. We got cars like crazy. Let's see if I can do this again. Y'all just heard Tanya Stout-Brown. Tanya Stout-Brown. All right, tell me if y'all can hear this. I can't play it on my computer for some reason. Here's Representative Zachary talking about his response yesterday to that bill that I think they were just talking about. It may be totally different. Whatever. Here we go.
Good afternoon. Quick update on the ESA bill. I did vote for the ESA bill on the floor for a couple of very specific reasons. One, Knox County has been removed. Number two, Knox County is held fiscally harmless. And three, our teachers are going to be able to get their raises that they're expecting in Knox County. So I represent Knox County. I represent the 14th district, and that is my priority. So you're my priority, so I was able to negotiate Knox County out, hold Knox County fiscally harmless, which then allows our teachers to get their raises, and that's the most important thing to me. So for anybody that has questions or says otherwise, I was really clear in finance and really clear about why I supported it and then why I couldn't support it on the floor. We took care of those concerns, so I was able to vote yes. If I can help you with anything. Basically harmless, which then allows our teachers to get their raises, and that's the most important thing to me. So for anybody that has questions or says otherwise, I was really clear in finance and really clear about why I supported it and then why I couldn't support it on the floor. We took care of those concerns, so I was able to vote yes. If I can help you with anything.
So anyways, y'all want to talk about that? Let me know. Seems like people are upset. The responses you got on Twitter are not exactly kind. Man, they're killing him on Twitter for this. Karen Carson says, trying to justify your lack of character/courage won't work. I despise backroom deals. Laws that are bad for your kids are bad for all kids. Craig, Representative Craig oh goodness. So to the gentleman from Knox, the bill passed. You voted for it. Not one of the provisions you mentioned was in the bill. Who knows what it will look like when you see it again. Somebody else says, so you're okay with hurting other kids in this state as long as they aren't in your district. All Christopher Hale is verified on Twitter. That's a big deal. He says, Representative Zachary, with due respect, I look forward to helping end your political career in the Tennessee legislature. Someone else says, me too. Me too. Hey. Stephanie says, thank you for putting kids first. Someone else says, thank you for putting rich kids first. Someone else says, heads up, lots of people have never heard of you before today and are very angry with you, myself included. When I hear your name in any future race, I will donate to your opponent. You made a terrible decision. Jeez, man, they're killing this guy for us. Oh, someone dropped the F word. You can't drop the F word on Twitter. What do y'all think? Y'all following this at all? Anybody else care? Update on Zachary's ESA vote. Knox County is out, held fiscally harmless, and our teachers are getting their raises, he says.
All tied up right now. So the Dems, they're proposing presidential candidates in 2020 to make America better. A $93 trillion Green New Deal, elimination of fossil fuels, sweet. Allegedly open borders. I don't know. I haven't exactly heard what their take on that is yet. They definitely want to abolish ICE. Bernie Sanders is out there pitching, hey, let's go ahead and let convicted murderers, rapists, and terrorists vote. I gave you my sense on that yesterday. I'm going to go over it again today. The great franchise is a thing. It's possibly worthy of a conversation. I will say, however, Bernie Sanders, man, what in the world did you do, not knowing that when they specifically asked you if the Boston bombing terrorist suspect, now convicted individual, should be able to vote, and you said, yeah, they're not going to immediately come back with you and say, Bernie Sanders is advocating for letting terrorists vote in America? Because that's exactly what you did. They want to abolish the Electoral College. They're talking about stacking the Supreme Court with activist judges. Of course, they want to curtail the Second Amendment, which is a very interesting thing to consider. Hang on. You're talking about giving convicted felons and convicted terrorists the right to vote, but are we also what other American rights extend to convicted felons? Obviously not the Second Amendment. But the right to vote? Obviously, we're talking free college, student loan debt forgiveness. We spoke with our expert yesterday. $1.5 trillion shared by 44 million individuals for student loan debt right now. Elizabeth Warren's plan is to roll back 95% of those individuals. Now, how do you do that? It's already counted as an American asset. That is a guaranteed debt. It's a guaranteed debt, meaning we already count it as an asset on our books, meaning what Elizabeth Warren is proposing is to get rid of the current $1.5 trillion in student loan debt. To forgive that, you just add another $1.5 trillion in debt. So Elizabeth Warren's proposal is here's an extra $1.5 trillion in debt. Let's just make it $3 trillion. Let's just round it off to a sweet round number there. Universal health care, everyone's talking about. And by the way, don't any of you real news folks ask me about how do you pay for this? That is an anti-American pessimist stance. With all that being said, let's go to Roberta talking about the Democrat Party. What's on your mind?
If Trump goes through with his peace plan, we don't need to worry about the progressive Democrats.
Interesting. Now, what do you mean? What do you mean by peace plan?
He has made clear that at the end of Ramadan, he has a peace to announce for Israel, which would give them permanent. It would expand the land of Israel, which would give them the Golan Heights and so forth permanently. And when that happened at World War III, he's already clamping down on part of this peace plan is clamping down on Iran.
Yeah.
And when you do, and that they're not going to tolerate that. Why should they? But anyway, we want to cripple their economy, and we're going to cripple ourselves if we don't watch what we're doing. But we need to keep an eye on the Euphrates. But if this peace, because there will be 4 nations that will join together, and then we do have World War III, and we're not going to bomb in other places. They'll hit us.
How do you think any of this plays in, Roberta, to there was a recent House resolution to end the American involvement in the proxy war in Yemen, and Trump used his second time ever as veto power to shut that resolution down. Now, a lot of people are seeing this as the proxy war between Saudi Arabia and Iran taking place in Yemen right now, and Trump's necessity to back Saudi Arabia, because if you don't back Saudi Arabia, you are, by implication, I suppose, backing Iran, and that's not the play that that the president wants to make right now. Do you see any of this playing into that right now as well?
Oh, yes. But along with this, Iran, we are shut off. Basically, he's already managed through pressure on the other NATO nations and what have you. I don't know what all they are. But to prohibit anybody buying Iranian oil. Now, the Strait, I'm not sure I'm going to pronounce it right, but the Strait of Hormuz, Iran will block that. And nobody's oil. Syria thinks it. Trump and Syria think that they will then have the Syrian oil. And we don't need to worry about it because we have so much of our own. Well, if that's true, why is our gas price as high as it is? But anyway, that's beside the point. But anyway, it's been made very clear that if Iran tries to block the Straits of Hormuz, and there's another one that I don't know the name of, but there's 2 that the oil goes through, that our American planes will bomb them, and that we will reopen it. And we can't do this, but he's planning to. And if he does, and this goes through, and I think that between him and Netanyahu, and I am pro-Israel, this is not against Israel, but when they go through with this, we have taken the lid off a powder keg we can't put back on.
Yeah.
And no matter, Elizabeth Warren can beloved old man that wants to be any of it. Come up with anything you want because it isn't going to make a hill of beans difference because chances are we won't be here. It'll take them about 30 seconds to bring down our grid. And then 90% of Americans will die within a year.
Goodness. Hey, Roberta, we got to hit this break right now. I always appreciate hearing from you. We'll talk to you soon.
But thank you for letting me spout. I do appreciate it.
No problem at all, Roberta. We'll talk to you soon there. Hey, there goes Roberta, 748. Hit this break, come back with Jones Call. Subheading there says Finland health system collapse. Goodness, be right back.
Yeah, like that little DJ remix. That sounds awful. That's how one get around Facebook shutting me down all the time. All right.
See who our partners are at talkradio923.com.
Hang on. Ow. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Now there's no commercial bleed over. Wake Forest. Let's see what John's talking about. Finland. Oh, this is what John's talking about. Get out of here, advertising. Although his newly hired senior advisor once waxed poetic of Chavez's economic miracle, Comrade Bernie Sanders continues to argue he's not advocating for Venezuelan-style socialism, he's arguing for European-style socialism. That's better. Saying in the United States it costs on average $12,000 to have a baby. In Finland it costs $60. In Finland it costs $60. There's just one problem. The entire Finnish healthcare system is collapsing. I'm not exaggerating, I'm not. This is Washington Examiner. The entire Finnish government literally resigned earlier this month as their attempts to reform their sinking healthcare system failed. Although idiotic leftists herald Finland's universal healthcare system as enviable, multiple governments over the past dozen years have attempted and failed to reform the increasingly insolvent system. Finland faces both a rapidly aging population and rising treatment costs, resulting in the bills the government struggles to pay and massive shortages of care. In the past 2 decades, the number of Finnish hospital beds has decreased almost 40%. Wow, dude, that's a problem. Goodness. In the nation's southeast, wait times to see a general practitioner clock in around a week. And more than 4 out of 5 people across the country wait more than 2 weeks to see a general practitioner. Sad days.
Yeah, the Beastie Boys get you hype in the morning, brush your teeth while they're screaming at your face. I don't know why you're so mad at me, Beastie Boys, but I'm sorry. I won't do it again.
I'm eating my Wheaties, I swear. I swear.
Oh, dude, all right. I'll flip the flapjack.
They are. They're like good if you have a little, alcohol in your system, but maybe not at 7 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, probably not good things to wake up to. Right? Calm down, Beastie Boys. We haven't had the first cup yet. Here's the headline, Washington Examiner as of March 21st, 2019. Bernie touts Finland's failing healthcare system in his call for socialism, although his newly hired senior advisor once waxed poetic of Chavez's economic miracle. Comrade Bernie Sanders continues to argue that he's not advocating for Venezuelan-style socialism. Rather, he's arguing for European-style socialism. This is Bernie Sanders' tweet as of March 6th this year. In the United States, it costs on average $12,000 to have a baby. In Finland, it costs $60. He says, we've got to end the disgrace of our profit-driven healthcare system and passed Medicare for all. There's just one problem, the Washington Examiner says. The entire Finnish healthcare system is collapsing. I'm not exaggerating. I'm not, this author says. The entire Finnish government literally resigned earlier last month as their attempts to reform their sinking healthcare system failed. Let's go to Joan on line 3 with that topic in hand. Joan, what's on your mind?
Good Good morning. I'm going to do Levin this morning. Joan on the mighty 760 AM WETR, East Tennessee. Go!
I like it.
Yeah. Finland's prime minister and 16 members of his cabinet have resigned in disgrace. Their economic, socialized medical system has collapsed completely. They cannot afford it anymore. They have no plans. They have nothing in its place. Gee, Bernie, where are you when we need you in Finland? What are you going to say after that? If a tiny country can't run it, Venezuela tried it and couldn't make it happen. Where are we going to go to get a good example of single payer? Nowhere.
I don't know, and I'm still struggling here too, because you called in yesterday, Joan, and told us your own horror story about I want to say the American healthcare system in general. I would say it's more like con men that are operating with our own insurance scheme, which might be a different play altogether.
Well,
but
you have to really come at these insurance companies to cover this 27 Mexicans and illegal others that get free health care at the ER. So, of course, you have to just punish the insurance companies. You have to come up, and that one charge for a double room, that was just one of a litany of things that they threw on my little $149,000 bill for 2 days of nominal care. So,
well, about the fifth paragraph here in the Washington Examiner piece says Finland faces both a rapidly aging population and rising treatment costs, resulting in bills the government struggles to pay and massive shortages of care. In the past 2 decades, the number of Finnish hospitals has decreased by almost 40%. Almost 40%.
But what they're leaving out in that article is it is now collapsed. The Prime Minister has resigned. There is nothing there. And that is like the yellow vests and so much else the news is failing to report on. That part is left out of the story pretty much. And on a lighter note, Vladimir Biden has declared this morning Stephanopoulos is filled with artificial excitement at his daring to bring Charlottesville up in the video where he announces he went right to the guts of Trump this morning, attacking him. Oh, we should all just crumble.
I honestly think that a lot of Democrats were hoping and begging that Biden would get in here. And I say that because I think a lot of Democrats are starting to realize, hold on, man, this push for literally free everything and letting terrorists vote, no Republican is going to give it enough time to get into the minutia of what those details actually are. It's terrible talking points. It's terrible spin. They need a moderate. I'll give you the last 30 seconds here, Joe.
Beck has run on Blaze TV. Beck has run a huge expose on Biden and his son's dealings with the Ukraine. Can anyone say collusion?
Well, I mean, we tried to say collusion with Hillary in Ukraine. No one cared because it wasn't Russia. But, Joe, we got to hit this break. As always, I love hearing from you.
One quick thing there. I don't... gosh, when you said you had to hit that break, there went my mind.
All right. Joe, we'll give us a call back if you think of it, because it's going to cut us off whether I wanted to or not. But we'll talk to you soon, Joe.
Okay, thank you.
There goes Joe, 757. Look at his face. She's...
I got no control over those breaks, Facebook. And by I have no control over it, I mean it's literally going to cut us off mid-sentence otherwise. You know how radio goes. What do y'all want to... You want to do some more Alan Watts? You like Alan Watts at all?
By agnosia, really, by unknowing.
America's largest replacement window home remodeling company, Look Large, Art, and Claudia will take great care of you. They offer double up white vinyl windows. These windows receive the Good Housekeeping seal of approval, and they come with a lifetime warranty. Plus, they're energy saving and they're made.
Peter Haas, he says, here's the real reason to be afraid of robots.
The best window company in Knoxville.
The rise of the machines. Who here is scared of killer robots? I am. I used to work in UAVs, unmanned aerial vehicles. And all I could think seeing these things is that someday somebody is going to strap a machine gun to these things and they're going to hunt me down in swarms. I work in robotics at Brown University, and I'm scared of robots. Actually, I'm kind of terrified. But can you blame me? Ever since I was a kid, all I've seen are movies that portray the ascendance of artificial intelligence and our inevitable conflict with it. 2001: A Space Odyssey, The Terminator, The Matrix, and the stories they tell are pretty scary. Rogue bands of humans running away from super intelligent machines. That scares me. From the hands, it seems like it scares you as well. I know it is scary to Elon Musk. But, you know, we have a little bit of time before the robots rise up. Robots like the PR2 that I have in my initiative, they can't even open the door yet. So in my mind, this discussion of super intelligent robots is a little bit of a distraction from something far more insidious that is going on with AI systems across the country. You see, right now, there are people, doctors, judges, accountants, who are getting information from an AI system and treating it as if it was information from a trusted colleague. It's this trust that bothers me. Not because of how often AI gets it wrong. AI researchers pride themselves in accuracy on results. It's how badly it gets it wrong when it makes a mistake that has me worried. These systems do not fail gracefully. So let's take a look at what this looks like. This is a dog that has been misidentified as a wolf by an AI algorithm. The researchers wanted to know, why did this particular husky get misidentified as a wolf? So they rewrote the algorithm to explain to them the parts of the picture it was paying attention to when the AI algorithm made its decision. In this picture, what do you think it paid attention to? What would you pay attention to? Maybe the eyes, maybe the ears, the snout. This is what it paid attention to. Mostly the snow in the background of the picture. You see, there was bias in the data set that was fed to this algorithm. Most of the pictures of wolves were in snow. So the AI algorithm conflated the presence of absence of snow for the presence or absence of a wolf. The scary thing about this is the researchers had no idea this was happening until they rewrote the algorithm to explain itself. And that's the thing with AI algorithms, deep learning, machine learning. Even the developers who work on this stuff have no idea what it's doing. So that might be a great example from research. But what does this mean in the real world? The Compass criminal sentencing algorithm is used in 13 states to determine criminal recidivism, or the risk of committing a crime again after you're released. ProPublica found that if you're African American, Compass was 77% more likely to qualify you as a potentially violent offender than if you're Caucasian. This is a real system being used in the real world by real judges to make decisions about real people's lives. Why would the judges trust it if it seems to exhibit bias? Well, the reason they use Compass is because it is a model for efficiency. Compass lets them go through caseloads much faster in a backlogged criminal justice system. Why would they question their own software? It's been requisitioned by the state, approved by their IT department. Why would they question it? Well, the people sentenced by Compass have questioned it, and their lawsuit should chill us all. The Wisconsin State Supreme Court ruled that Compass did not deny a defendant due process provided it was used properly. Yet in the same set of rulings, they ruled that a defendant could not inspect the source code of Compass. It has to be used properly, but you can't inspect the source code.
What is this guy talking about? This is pretty sweet. Richard just sent me this. Are you a politician or a reporter who's unsure what to call various religions? The Easter worshippers of Babylon B are here to help. This is awesome. Babylon B just put out a guide to alternative names for world religions. The traditional name for Christians is, well, Christians. The updated new name is Easter worshipper. We all know that one. So what do we call Hindus? We call them cow avoiders. What do you call Muslims? Hummus enjoyers. Oh my gosh. What do you call Buddhists? Nirvana fans? What do you call Wiccans? Hot Topic shoppers. What do you call Jews? Tiny hat wearers? Oh my gosh. How offensive is this? Can I do this on radio? Mormons are polite bike riders. That one's funny to me. Mormons are polite bike riders. Atheists are teenagers, all right? Jehovah's Witnesses are like Mormons, but on foot. Satanists are dungeon masters. Crossfitters are fanatical fitness evangelizers. Scientologists are removed by our lawyers, in brackets. That's funny, Richard. Can I do that on radio? Is that too offensive? It's probably too offensive, right? Oh, sorry about that. You're listening to the reason to be afraid of artificial intelligence. I'm bringing that up in Conspiracy Theory Thursday. Stay tuned. Should be interesting.
In the morning. Welcome back to Real News, ladies and gentlemen. We have a few open lines on the Crown Plaza call number at 865-888-TALK. That's 865-888-8255. My name is Mr. Henry. As I said already, this show is called Real News. I was playing during the break for some of the Facebook folks. What was I playing? What was I playing? Where did this go? Here it goes. Yeah. This was Peter Haas, the real reason to be afraid of artificial intelligence, and I'm teasing this just a little bit right now for our segment of Conspiracy Theory Thursday. It sounds odd now, but I'm going to tie this all together with Julian Assange. About 7 years ago, 8 years ago, 9 years ago, something to that effect, during an interview saying that this is the last generation that will be free, the last free generation. I'm going to tie that to uploading consciousness to CPUs. I'm going to tie that to AI takeover. I'm going to tie that to Peter Haas's speech about the real reason to be afraid of artificial intelligence, all this stuff. Very interesting topic. Before I get to that, though, let's get into the topic at hand today. New Democrat proposals for how to make America better. Here's Bernie Sanders Talking about, what's he talking about? He's talking about some voting rights. Here we go.
Can't make this up. Take a look.
You have said that you believe that people with felony records should be allowed to vote while in prison. Does this mean that you would support enfranchising people like the Boston Marathon bomber, a convicted terrorist and murderer?
Okay, already. One more time, as far as it pertains to this issue, because everyone and their mother is talking about this, if you go talk to your Democrat friends, or if you're going to try and push them on this issue of Bernie Sanders and Democrats are now proposing the idea that rapists and murderists, goodness gracious, Mr. Henry, rapists and murderers and convicted terrorists should have the right to vote, you need to understand, going into that conversation, there is a thing called the great franchise. There is a thing of the inherent right of an American citizen in our representative republic. The most fundamental right of all, I would believe, is the right to vote. Above everything else, almost, I would say. I know that's a controversial opinion. Some might say, well, what about property rights? Yes, I understand. But if you're going to have some type of overarching government to protect those property rights, the people have to have a voice. You get what I'm saying? The most direct way to have a voice is to vote, to protect those property rights through the Fourth Amendment. I believe the entirety of our Constitution is founded on the Fourth Amendment. It's an odd perspective, but one that Napolitano agrees with on that. But to protect that right, you have to understand that this conversation is one may be worth having. The point I'm making today, though, is, again, Democrats, y'all, it's just such terrible, terrible spin. Coming from, you have to understand that it's getting so bad for Democrat talking points now. I'm almost to the point of seriously considering that the Russia collusion conspiracy was a concocted Republican conspiracy just to put Democrats in a terrible box.
But I think the right to vote is inherent to our democracy. Yes, even for terrible people. So I believe that people who commit crimes, they pay the price. When they get out of jail, I believe they certainly should have the right to vote. But I do believe that even if they are in jail, they're paying their price to society, but that should not take away their inherent American right to participate in our democracy.
Okay, and then I hear Piers Morgan go on Tucker Carlson's show 2 nights back after this was said by Bernie Sanders. And Piers Morgan, of all people, y'all, I mean, Piers Morgan, the guy that was essentially forced out of America because his commentary was just so terrible, and Americans in general don't like the notion of a foreigner telling an American how to run American politics. We just don't like that idea. John Oliver, I think, does a fairly decent job at times of really just riding that line as close as he possibly can. But Piers Morgan goes on Tucker Carlson's show and makes the argument, all right. So if we're going to give convicted terrorists the right to vote and convicted felons the right to vote, what other constitutional rights are we going to consider giving them? Of course, we're not going to give them the Second Amendment. Piers Morgan is a guy that doesn't even like the Second Amendment. He doesn't like gun ownership at all. Now you have a person that doesn't even support the Second Amendment making the argument of Bernie Sanders. You're going to consider giving the right to own a gun to a felon? No, of course not. The point, again, I'm making is it's just all too easy. Here's Kamala Harris talking about the Second Amendment.
In D.C., supposed leaders who have failed to have the courage to reject a false choice, which suggests you're either in favor of the Second Amendment or you want to take everyone's guns away. Supposed leaders in Washington, D.C., who have failed to have the courage to recognize, you know what, you want to go hunting, that's fine. But we need reasonable gun safety laws in this country, starting with universal background checks and a renewal of the assault weapon ban. Upon being elected, I will give the United States Congress 100 days to get their act together and have the courage to pass reasonable gun safety laws. And if they fail to do it...
And if they fail to do it, I'm telling y'all, man, some of the stuff that these Democrat representatives are saying now we need to pay careful, close attention to. And I'm not saying that Trump doesn't have his own things he needs to answer for. Of course, I'm getting into the conversation of executive privilege, of executive action, of executive orders. Now go take a look at the history. Go back, let's go back 100 years even, okay? Someone did this for me on Facebook the other day. Go back 100 years and look at the number of executive agency orders, executive privilege, whatever the executive branch tried to force and sort of circumvent the other branches of government. Obviously, FDR was overwhelming more than anybody else. Now that makes sense for he served, the wartime he was serving, and whatever else, right? But go look at the number of executive orders. This has been a precedent that has been set for a very long time, and it's been one that has been flipping between Democrat and Republican presidents for a very long time as well. But going forward here, when we're talking about pushing executive orders that would somehow curtail a constitutional right, the second of our Bill of Rights, Kamala Harris's answer to this is basically the answer that I don't know if anybody really wants to consider. I've been very clear about this as well. Have I not? When President Trump pushes something through an executive order, I know a lot of his supporters like this. Now, Mr. Henry doesn't exactly fall on that line. I would like to think that what Trump is really doing most of the time when he's pushing executive orders is trying to force the onus back on the legislature to actually do its job. Now, I don't know if I've lived in a time when the legislature has actually done its job properly. I'm not that old, so that doesn't say much. I would love to see a time again where that branch of government actually rises up and does something. I think it would help out our conversations with the Supreme Court. I think it would help out our conversations with the executive branch. I think it would force Americans back to the principled conversation of, should we start to reconsider whether each branch of the government has its own version of constitutional interpretation? Now, we're long past that now. We are long past that now. What, did Marbury take care of that for us? I don't remember. But listen to Kamala Harris, how she follows this up. Oh, my gosh,
Get their act together and have the courage to pass reasonable gun safety laws. And if they fail to do it, then I will take executive action.
Okay.
Yeah. If they fail to do it, she's going to take executive action. You knew where that was going. Here's a bit from Pete Buttigieg.
Comprehensive immigration reform that works on dreamers. But as
amnesty for millions that didn't respect our laws, our Constitution, our sovereignty, and our borders. Take a look.
There's a broad U.S. consensus that we need to find a way to protect dreamers. But as your question brings out, there are over 10 million people who are undocumented immigrants in this country who don't fall into that category. And the reality is we can't have comprehensive immigration reform that works unless it addresses the status for those 11-some million undocumented immigrants. So what we need to do is make sure there's a pathway to citizenship for them too.
All right, so pathway to citizenship for the 11 million undocumented individual right now. And I'm telling y'all, please believe me when I say this, and this is a stance that I think I'm not stepping back from. I'm actually going more into. Pete Buttigieg is the guy that needs to be paid attention to. This is something that I don't think a lot of my Republican friends agree with yet. I don't think many of my Democrat friends agree with yet. And even my friends that are really, really into politics, even David Shine Thompson, the guy that started the show with me, he's not exactly on board with me with this yet. I personally believe Pete Buttigieg is the guy to watch out for, not in 2020 necessarily, but going forward 2024. Now, the common approach, the common critique, rather, that Buttigieg has received, is that when it comes time for him to actually articulate policies, the details of how he's going to implement some of these plans, he is not only reticent to say, he is purposely withholding. What do I mean by that? He's actually been asked, okay, you haven't laid out a lot of the details of how you're going to make this work yet. His response is, I don't think the American people are to the point of needing to have that conversation yet. Now, that is mind-blowing for several reasons. First of all, because it's true. It's not true on its face. It's just true in practicality. When Pete Buttigieg comes out and says this early into the Democrat presidential race is not the time to lay out details, goodness gracious, what he's saying, and this is a McKinsey Institute guy. This is a guy at the top levels of how to put together a political campaign. What he's saying is, at this point in the time, it's a popularity contest. There's 20-something candidates out right now. Nobody cares about what the details are. They're trying to figure out who they want to have a beer with. Pete Buttigieg is a scary individual because he's so good. He is straight out saying to the American people, nobody cares about my details yet, and he's right. Nobody does care about his details yet. When Alexander Cortez can come out with a supposed Green New Deal, I read this piece yesterday from a climate change expert saying that the reason why Alexander Cortez's plan is wrong is not necessarily because it's focusing on the wrong things. It's not because it's not ambitious enough. It's not because we want to get towards renewable energy, he said. But the problem that we have with Alexander Cortez with her solution is she's trying to fix this in 10 years, not understanding that it's actually going to be worse, not for the economy, Not only is it not going to be worse for the economy, it's going to be worse for the climate because the infrastructure is not there. The infrastructure is not there to build these solar plants and to build the wind turbines and the massive, massive batteries that this takes. And the fact of the matter, the wind doesn't always blow and the sun doesn't always shine. So these massive batteries have to be harvested for somewhere else. And then you get into the conversation of where are these batteries being harvested from? Obviously through slave labor. The point this guy was making is, and it's a point I'm making about Pete Buttigieg, is how much of the country, or at least through the media right now, is all on board, full steam ahead for Alexander Cortez's Green New Deal. An expert in the climate change industry says not only is that bad economics, it's bad for humanity, and it's bad for the climate. Do you know what these batteries are going to do? It's just a bad proposal all the way around. In spite of all of that, in spite of the lack of details, the media is fully on board. This is what I'm saying. Nobody cares about the details this early on. Pete Buttigieg recognizes that. And he has this suave way to bring up issues that President Trump has touched on and to direct it directly at the middle class. That Rust Belt state. He was asked in an interview one time, what do you do with this idea of socialism being pitched and progressive ideals? And his answer was, and I'm not paraphrasing much here, his answer was, well, people bring up all the time about the problems that socialism has caused, but let's also think about the problems that capitalism has caused. And then just goes into a diatribe about the problems that capitalism has caused in America. And no one calls him out on the direct comparative nature between the problems that socialism has caused and the problems that capitalism has caused. They just take him at his word of glossing over so eloquently. Don't worry about the problems that socialism has caused. Let's worry about the problems that capitalism has caused. We need to fight against capitalism. And I suppose that necessarily means we need to consider socialism. Do you understand what I'm saying? He's saying all the right things up until that very last second where he hit you with the socialist jab. And no one sees it coming. Nobody sees this coming. Pete Buttigieg is also the guy, when he was asked directly, hey, what do you think about Bernie Sanders' proposal to allow, terrorists to vote, to allow convicted rapists to vote, murderers to vote? His response is, while they're in jail? And Andrew Cooper said, yeah, while they're in jail. And Pete Buttigieg's response was, no, that'd be ridiculous. And then he went on to explain, well, after they get out of jail, then we should consider, having to reinstitute the right to vote or whatever. But Pete Buttigieg, I'm telling y'all, man, he's the guy to pay attention to. We got to hit this break right now. When I come back, I'm going to get into a little bit of Chuck Todd explaining the problems the Democrats are now facing, along with their push for terrible, terrible proposals. They have a lack of anything. They're pushing for terrible proposals. They're also pushing for this idea that the other guy is awful, but you can't cite to a reason why the other guy is awful. And some people like Chuck Todd are finally recognizing Democrats have created a quagmire that we've fallen into, and we can't really get out of it. And the problem is we keep digging ourselves deeper trying to get out of it. 8:22 now. Be right back.
Yeah, Kelly, somebody else sent me that on Facebook, too. I think I'm going to bring that. It's going to be odd, but I think I'm going to bring that up there in Conspiracy Theory Thursday, too. The danger ahead for Marshall Stare.
Tennessee has been serving people locally and all across Tennessee. A lot of things have changed over that time, but one thing remains the same. FMT's commitment to putting their policyholders first. Most insurance companies make decisions based on how it will affect their stockholders. At FMT Insurance, serving the policyholder is their primary concern. The policyholders they serve are the owners of the company. FMT Insurance is there to serve you when the unexpected happens. Neighbors helping neighbors, one person, one family at a time. If you own a home, mobile home, rental dwelling, farm, or maybe coverage from your church.
I do believe that impeachment is one of the most divisive.
Our problem is Democrats who are running around the country running president, and some investigations, including, as we mentioned, hauling in Don McGahn before the House Judiciary Committee. But tonight, the president tells the Washington Post, quote, he opposes cooperation with House Democrats who he claimed are trying.
What do you mean? You're a Bonnaroo in 07 when Radiohead was there? I'm not following. Are you talking about my dire predictions for a socialist America?
Call 865-272-2749. Go online now to MrElectric.com. Traffic from the FFT Insurance Studios of Talk Radio 92.3 and AM 760.
Wait, I'm not following. Wait, you gotta fill in. I don't know what that means. I was a Bonnaroo in 07 when Radiohead was there. You people need to relax those snap. Dang it. Let me know what that means. What happened in 07 when Radiohead was there? I'm going to have to Google this now.
The Democrats are in quite a predicament.
Can be as bad as one. No is the saddest experience.
Hey, 8:26 in the morning. Welcome back to Real News. Ray's hanging on there saying the singularity is inevitable, as the term implies, I suppose. Before I get to him, let me finish this out. All right, so the Democrat talking point of whether or not we're going to impeach Trump has become such an absurd proposal trying to support. And this, it's not like I'm trying to be pro-Trump here. I know that's what people are going to take away from this. I'm not necessarily trying to be pro-Trump. I'm just trying to look at these facts objectively and think to myself, I don't know. I don't know what else are you going to go on. Who was it, Ken Starr, that said that the impeachment process is whatever the populace is okay with considering as to be unacceptable? An impeachment process is whatever the populace is okay as labeling as a high crime or misdemeanor? Well, Benjamin Franklin also said that the impeachment process is just an alternative version of assassination. I'm not sure which route you want to go down there. Listen to, Roz, is this computer good here? Hey, Roz. Yeah, okay, yeah. Listen to Democrat Representative Jeffries here.
To score political points against him. Our next guest is one of those Democrats and a proud product of Brooklyn, New York. Congressman Hakeem Jeffries sits on the House Judiciary Committee, and more importantly these days, he's the party guy in the House majority. He is chairman of the House Democratic Caucus. Congressman, thank you for coming on. How do you think you are going to decide whether or not to pursue impeachment, and is one way to just proceed with hearings that are, except for the title, impeachment hearings, but in name only?
All right, now, what he's referencing now is this new Democrat talking point that's come out that we actually need to have investigations finally. We need to. Hillary Clinton just came out with this yesterday in an interview where she said no one has really looked into what's happened behind the Russian involvement with Trump. Now, I don't know. I'm honestly trying to get my head around this talking. I seriously am. I have no idea what to make of this. I don't even want to go down the route of it being a blatant lie, because then I could go to, well, the FBI, first of all, started an investigation. The House and the Senate have their own separate supposed bipartisan investigations. Democrats and Republicans, both in the House and the Senate, were looking into this for their own biased reasons, I'm sure, but nonetheless they did. And we had the 2-year-long Mueller investigation. So that's at least 4 separate investigations I can point to. But that's too easy. There's something else at play here. When this talking point has come up that Hillary Clinton and now all the other Democrats are saying that we need to have a full-breathed investigation as to what actually happened, I don't know what to do with it. Because as I just said, the simple retort of, we've had 4 of them. I don't know. And I say it's too simple because it's the same thing that Democrats say to Republicans when Republicans start pushing the idea. Let's be fair about this. When Republicans start pushing the idea of, well, we need to look into the Hillary Clinton email scandal. We need to look into the Clinton Foundation. We need to look into Uranium One. Every Democrat says, well, we've already had investigations pertaining to that. Technically true. Now, we could talk all day long about what those investigations were and the people involved. That's part of the reason why Republicans want the actual Mueller investigation or the start of the FBI investigation looked into. I'm getting a bit too tangential here. Follow along.
Well, Speaker Nancy Pelosi has laid out a clear standard for how to proceed, and it's a standard that the overwhelming majority of the House Democratic Caucus embraces. That is, that the case for impeachment must be compelling, the evidence must be overwhelming, and public sentiment around impeachment must be bipartisan in nature. So we're going to go down the course where we will gather the necessary evidence so that we can then evaluate it and present it to the American people. First, we want access to the entire Mueller report, not the redacted version, because the Attorney General cannot be trusted to provide an accurate portrayal to the American people, and who knows whether the redactions were legitimate or not. Second,
there again, I have a problem with that because as a Democrat, I would think to myself, I would almost want the redactions not given to the American people because then I would have the ability to tell the American people through leaks or otherwise that there's something within those redactions that proves my point. And this is already what we're starting to see. We're starting to see a litany of issues that are coming out. I heard one today that the Mueller report was actually talking about President Clinton. There was something that Hannity was reporting on last night. I still didn't connect the dots. That Hannity was reporting on that there was something in the Mueller report going all the way back to President Clinton and the affair he had with Monica Lewinsky. There was all kind of stuff in those redactions. There's almost 20-something pages of redactions. If I was a Democrat, I wouldn't want those redactions shown to the American people because then I could rely upon the redactions and the lack of information to prove a fabricated reality. Nevertheless, here's Chuck Todd pretty eloquently putting together the state of where Democrats are right now.
Look, they have a real dilemma on their hands, and I actually think there is no right answer. There's no right moral or ethical decision, which is there are unintended consequences if they choose to go down this road, and there's unintended consequences if they choose not to do this, right? Are you sort of okaying the idea of foreign adversaries helping out political campaigns if there isn't an attempt to put this behavior on the docket of Congress? At the same time, you may politically be handing the president a cudgel with which he could get reelected, and maybe that's outside of the goals of the Democrats here.
Well, now, this is what I'm saying. When I said at the beginning of the show for Conspiracy Theory Thursday, I'm joking slightly here. Actually, I'm joking quite a bit, but I don't know. There's always a sense of sincerity to everyone's sarcasm, right? When I said at the beginning of the show that the Russian collusion conspiracy now seems like it's a Republican-started conspiracy, what I mean by that is what Chuck Todd actually said. I'm going to come back in after the break with this. What Chuck Todd actually said was Democrats have now set up that for the past 2.5, almost 3 years, that they are going to impeach President Trump primarily for Russian conspiracy. And when Chuck Todd said that, if you don't try and hold somebody accountable, you're actually being, condoning or you're somehow complicit in Russian involvement's interference with the election. What he actually meant was, we've told our voting populace for 3 solid years that Trump did collude with the Russians. Now that he hasn't, we have to make something of this. But the problem is, if we don't do anything with this, we're having to admit that we lied to our our base, which we're never going to do. So here's the other side of the coin. If we don't want to admit that we lied to our base for 3 solid years, then we have to try and pursue Trump. But in pursuing Trump, we're pursuing a lie. And in pursuing a lie, we're only going to help him win. So what do? It's a literal no-win situation for Democrats right now. You couple the no-win situation for Democrats with everything we brought up at the beginning of the show: Green New Deal, elimination of fossil fuels, open borders, abolishing ICE, letting convicted murderers and terrorists vote, curtailing the Second Amendment, free college, student loan debt forgiveness, universal health care. Don't ask a question at all about how we're going to pay for any of this. So you got a conundrum over here, and you have terrible policy over here.
What difference at this point does it make?
Yeah, exactly. What difference at this point does it make? it's going to be Trump either way, I suppose, in 2020, unless y'all got something different I'm not seeing. 8:33. Be right back.
Trace, what's up, buddy? Hey, Trace, you and I have not spoken yet about what your folks are. Dude. Man, a black hole, a literal vortex is about to be created in the studio. My brother and Shine are in the same room with each other. It's about to go down. These two love each other. It's always fun when they're together. Trace, I have not spoken to you yet about what your folks are making in the Mueller report. I'd also be interested to see your take on Bernie Sanders saying the Boston Bombers should vote. Oh, snap, indeed. I'm telling you, man. The apocalypse, it's happening. Shine and my brother popping up in the same Facebook room at the same time. I love it. Sean, I don't know if you missed the beginning of the show, bro. Remember that South Park episode where the 9/11 conspiracy is a government conspiracy? That's what I've been going on today. That the Russia collusion conspiracy is really a Republican conspiracy because it's worked out so terribly for Democrats. Yeah. Trace, that's what Shine says most people are at.
From the Fox Business Network, Altria Group, parent company of Philip Morris and Marlboro, is reporting a disappointing winter quarter. Cigarette sales.
That's an interesting take, Bill.
14%.
Trace, that's Shine says that's where most people in the country are at. I think you're right, man. I think he's right too. Is most people are just over this.
By the grounding of a 730 MAX jets.
The idea I heard is this: the hearings for the roadmap to impeachment is not intended to actually affect impeachment, but rather a strategy to discount and deflect from indictments coming from Barr. All right. So we're playing poker here, I suppose, huh? The Democrats will attempt to say the indictments are a desperate move by an embattled president to avoid impeachment. Yeah? That's what it is. It's a great take, Bill. The audience is the public who they hope will be convinced that any indictments against Comey, Hillary, is the effort by the president's lawyer Barr to save him from Russia fallout. Yeah. I could see that. I could definitely see that. So what's Trump's play then? Should he hold off on all those other things that are coming? We have the IG report, Horowitz, is going to come out soon. We have the Nunez indictments. We have Julian Assange testimony. We have, because he's about to be extradited to Virginia in the next couple of months. We still have the release of the FISA court documents, Woods trial, Carter Page surveillance. Should we just take a loss in this one, just push it past 2020? I mean, this is what I'm saying. The Democrats are setting up the game to preempt all that stuff coming from the Trump administration. Should he just withhold? Just let them call their own bluff, or rather call their bluff, you get what I'm saying? If it is true that they know they have nothing, they're just pushing this to preempt when Trump comes out with something that may have something. Should we just let them keep pushing and fall in their face? Very interesting stuff, man. I'm reading that when I get back on air, Bill. Can you run again if you have been impeached? I suppose you couldn't run again if you've been removed, but we've never had that happen before, and we never will have that happen. Let's be for real. So I think the answer, I don't know, man. I've never read any scholarly articles on that question before, Heather. I would think you could run again if you've been impeached by the House, that is. I would doubt you could run again if you've been removed. But if you've been impeached and, I don't know, Republicans want to vote you in again, you could definitely run again. Yeah, and dude, we're never going to have the Senate remove anybody. Well, I say never, but certainly not now. Oh, right, we got to do a radio show. Hey, y'all think I can read this on the air? Hang on. Oh, y'all can't see links, can you? Well, if you can see those links, if you're on a computer, I'll figure out another way. It's the Babylon Bee Guide to Alternative Names for World Religions. The Guide to Alternative Names for World Religions. That's funny.
Right?
Back to Real News, ladies and gentlemen. I'm joking with Facebook off air. My buddy David Cham Thompson and my brother have both joined the Facebook at the same time. So begins the apocalypse. A vortex has been created in the FMT Insurance Studios. The end times are here. The end is nigh. You know what I mean? Oh, man. No, the debates between those two are classic. Classic ones. They love each other, though. My brother is a guy I tell you about all the time. He's a clinical neuroscientist up in Virginia, and I like to take his pulse on some of these things because, look, for every random person that's out there trying to rip down the 13-ton doors of the Supreme Court because an alleged serial rape is being put on the Supreme Court, there are 200 times more intelligent, reasonable Democrats out there. You following me? My brother's working with a bunch of people that I suppose would be Democrats or at least would be admitted not Republicans. And I asked him in Facebook, where are y'all standing on this whole Mueller report? Where are y'all standing on this whole impeachment process? He says, we're over it. Finding it hard to get worked up about this kind of stuff these days, which I think this is what Shine said last time he was on the program. He said, by and large, I think most Americans are just done with this, which is it's a very confusing thing then for people that are following the media all the time to think that the vast majority of Democrats and Republicans, for that matter, are totally over the Mueller report. We're totally over the talk of impeachment, yet all of our representatives are pushing that. Bill has a very, very interesting take on this. I want to finish out this Chuck Todd pieces before I get to Bill's take on this, because I think Bill is totally right about this in Facebook here. Here's the rest of Chuck Todd, though.
I'm on their hands, and I actually think there is no right answer. There's no right moral or ethical decision, which is there are unintended consequences if they choose to go down this road, and there's unintended consequences if they choose not to do this, right? Are you sort of okaying the idea of foreign adversaries helping out political campaigns if there isn't an attempt to put this behavior on the docket of Congress? At the same time, you may politically be handing the president a cudgel with which he could get reelected.
All right, now, obviously what Chuck Todd is recognizing is that Bill Clinton's highest approval rating was right before he was impeached. Was that 72%? They know the same thing is going to happen with Trump. And even more so with Trump because Bill Clinton had 11 indictments pushed behind him. 3 or 4 of which were actually pertaining specifically to him by way of perjury and obstruction of justice. They actually had indictments that were pertaining to Bill Clinton himself personally. We don't have that with Trump. Moreover, we don't have an underlying criminal charge at all to even speak of at this point, but whatever. Chuck Todd is recognizing that. Chuck Todd is also recognizing that every single... Dude, we gave 2 Pulitzer Prizes out for the collusion conspiracy coverage. Who is it? The New York Times and the Washington Post both got Pulitzer Prizes. Come on, man. Pulitzer Prizes for covering something that now has been entirely debunked. That's where we are. There wasn't just representatives that were promising their base that they were going to get something done in this conspiracy charge, because collusion isn't a real word. It was all of the media as well, as opposed, other than just Fox News. And let's be real, Fox News was still playing into it, even by responding to it, which is part of my problem today, lending credence to the fake, fabricated conspiracy story by trying to answer for the conspiracy story. Now, that gets a little bit to Bill's point here in a second. Here's the final part, though, of Chuck Todd actually making fun of the Democrat situation a little bit.
It made for themselves.
I do find it interesting. First, the Democrats said we want to wait for the Mueller report. Now it's we want to wait for Mueller to testify. At some point, these leaders who don't really want to pursue impeachment but don't want to tell that to the base may say, we're going to wait till Mueller's children testify. We're going to wait till Mueller's grandchildren testify. I mean, I do think they're trying to buy time to avoid the decision, to be honest.
Now, that's the problem, though, is it not? And Chuck Todd is totally correct when he says, I do think representatives are trying to buy time to when the decision really needs to be made. I'm telling y'all, man, this is why it feels like the Russia collusion conspiracy was a Republican-started conspiracy. Because the more time that Democrats buy, the more they're buying into something that has already been disproven. And the more time they try and buy to find some type of smoking gun that probably will never be there, if it is never there, they're only creating more lies to cover for the first lie. They're digging themselves deeper into this hole. Now, getting to Bill's comment here about what this all is about, and Raj, you can kill this computer if you want. Yeah, you can kill that. It's feeding back at me a little bit. Sorry about that. Bill says in Facebook, the idea I heard is this, and I think this is a very, very interesting piece of analysis, and I tend to totally agree with Bill here. Bill says, the idea I heard is this. The hearings for the roadmap to impeachment is not intended to actually affect impeachment, but rather a strategy to discount and deflect from indictments that will be coming from Barr. The Dems will attempt to say that the indictments are a desperate move by an embattled president trying to avoid impeachment. The audience is the public who, they hope, will be convinced that any indictments against Comey, Hillary, etc., is the effort of a, quote, president's lawyer, Barr in this case, to save him from the Russia fallout. That is brilliant analysis, and I think it's dead on. Do you understand what Bill is saying? Bill is saying is that Democrats are getting out in front of what is about to come from William Barr, the IG Horowitz report, Julian Assange testimony, the Carter Page, FISA court reports, the Woods trial, the indictments that Nunes is handing down, all this stuff that's in the wings waiting, that we've been waiting on for almost a year or two now. Whenever this stuff starts to trickle down, Democrats are trying to get in front of that by the impeachment talks now to say, hey, all Trump's trying to do is distract from us trying to really get at the heart of the issue. Part of the problem with that, though, is we've already had 4 investigations getting at the heart of the issue. Roz, give me about till, 49 if you can, or something. I'm going to shine right now. Shine, buddy. What's on your mind?
Oh, not much, man. You were sure dealing with a pretty hefty smorgasbord of news this morning.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot you're throwing out there. It's a Republican conspiracy. That's pretty heavy. Even though there's evidence for that.
A little bit, Sean. Joking a little bit, but yeah.
No, but I mean, you're joking, but there's actually some evidence for that. I mean, was it not John McCain who had his staffer hand deliver the Steele dossier?
Granted.
I would say that there may be some truth to it's a Republican thing, but only in the way of, like, the establishment Republicans.
Yeah.
Like the Bill Kristols, the John McCains, the Mitt Romneys of the world, allied with their pro-war left people, like Hillary Clinton. I think it's the pro-war wing of both parties who want to make Russia look like an adversary worth spending trillions of dollars on. I mean, there's maybe some truth to that, because there were definitely some Republicans working against the president. But on the where do we go from here kind of thing that you were just talking about, with the calls for impeachment and the possibility of people being held accountable for the beginning of the investigation, as far as all that goes, I think that your buddy's analysis is pretty good. I mean, there was a headline on Drudge, I think it was from Hill yesterday, and it was about telling the president that retribution maybe a step too far. And I do believe that this impeachment talk is hedging against what is inevitable. And this feels a lot like right after the president won the 2016 election, where the wool had been thrown off everyone's eyes about how the media and folks in the government were seemingly helping Hillary Clinton, and she still lost. And everyone was like, man, investigate Hillary Clinton. And everyone said, no, be presidential. And think about how much would be different is if he immediately went after Hillary Clinton before the Russia thing really had a time to settle in.
Right.
I think if they don't try to hold people accountable, there won't be an equalization. They will take that as weak. The Democrats will take that as weakness and drum up something similar to Russia and continue to hamper this president.
No,
they will take advantage.
Are you worried, though, man? Because what Shine just said, and I'll put it in terms I think the real news audience understands here, what Shine just said is that if Trump approaches right now with wanting to get to the bottom of how this whole thing started, of how the Russia probe started, and now knowing that there was never they knew there was no underlying conspiracy charge as early as December of 2017. That's when Mueller's people actually knew. It was reported on in December of 2017 that the Mueller report was about to be done because they determined then there was no underlying conspiracy charge. What Shine, I think, is saying is that it would be easier now for Democrats to spin this as retribution if Trump comes out right now. It is not, and I think, Shine, you would agree, it is not, nor would it be actually retribution if Trump tries to get the bottom of how this whole thing has started. It would just be a little bit easier for Democrats to spin it that direction and to distract away from what they would say are legitimate impeachment talks. But you hear where I'm coming from too, Shine. I'm not sure how many people are buying into the notion that these are legitimate impeachment talks anymore. We've had 4 investigations. There's nothing there other than some weird hint of obstruction of justice that even Mueller is not, concrete about. But go ahead and respond, man.
Well, I'd say when Chuck Todd is done carrying your water, when MSNBC is done carrying water for you, then you've probably left the Overton window.
Yeah.
But I'm saying, like, if MSNBC doesn't see it as profitable to be irrationally into impeachment. I mean, that's the way you got to think about it. If MSNBC, which has made their money off the Trump bump, I mean, MSNBC was in the tank before Trump. I mean, they were wondering if they were going to be able to keep the cameras and lights on. They've made money off of talking about impeachment.
Dude, yeah, look at Maddow's ratings now, right? Isn't she MSNBC? The supposed bombshell she was dropping all the time? That's the truth, man.
Yeah, but she's lost 500,000 viewers in the past 3 weeks. And it's an incremental increase. But what I'm saying is when MSNBC doesn't see it as profitable anymore to carry water for impeachment, I think that means that on even the far left edge of the Overton window, this is not inside that for the average American. I mean, I think I said it on your show, 8 to 20% of this country might be into impeachment, but I think even 20% would be generous.
Yeah, Sean, I got to hit this break, buddy. I think it's the best comments we've had so far. But it has nothing to do with red or blue. It has nothing to do with Democrat or Republican. If you don't make green anymore, if you're not making money off this coverage, it definitely means it's dead. Sean, buddy.
That's the only reason it's survived as long as it has.
Right.
And then MSNBC were making money off the Trump bump.
Great call, Sean. I'll talk to you soon, buddy.
Yes, sir.
Hey, there goes Sean, and I will talk to him soon, probably right after the show. 8:52, hit this break, come back with Scott, and then getting into Ray's call. Be right back.
These weapons of the...
Man, that's a great point, right? Good Lord. When Chuck Todd says that it's not worth covering anymore, what he means is we're not making money off of this anymore. And when we're not making money off of it, it means the voting populace has been done with it for a very long time.
Let them go through caseloads much faster in the backlogged criminal justice system. Why would they question their own software? It's been requisitioned by the state, approved by their IT department. Why would they question it? Would people sentenced by Compass have questioned it? And their lawsuit should show us all. The Wisconsin State Supreme Court ruled that Compass did not deny a defendant due process provided it was used properly. Yet in the same set of rulings, they ruled that the defendant could not inspect the source code of Compass. It has to be used properly, but you can't inspect the source code. This is a disturbing set of rulings when taken together for anyone facing criminal sentencing. Now, you may not care about this because you're not facing criminal sentencing. But what if I told you that black box AI algorithms like this are being used to decide whether or not you can get a loan for your house? Whether you get a job interview? Whether you get Medicaid? And are even driving cars and trucks down the highway? Would you want...
Who's Scotty?
And then we'll just move Ray to 9. He's going to hold it anyway, so it doesn't matter.
For an hour and a half.
Love you, Ray!
I know that's
love you!
Yeah, I get you right.
He actually likes holding because it's clearer this way
Oh,
for
really?
him than it is in Oak Ridge, yeah.
Spring battery needs Master Battery. The lowest price. How about a 2-year warranty on motorcycles?
Let's jump right now. I want to give Scott enough time here. Scott says blames the Dems because of their guilt. Ooh, very interesting. Scott, what's on your mind, sir?
Yeah, I think the Dems, I think their strategy all along is they're guilty of the things that they're accusing Trump of.
Wow.
So I think the reason they continue to push this is you touched on it a minute ago when you said that you checked with your brother's Democrat friends and everything, and even the Democrats are so tired of this and ready for it to be over with.
Yeah.
So if you and you know you're a guy who had the analysis deflecting off of that, if you want to, when it comes time, they know that possibly they may be investigated. Well, the American people are tired of it. They don't want to hear it. You won't get the news coverage. So therefore, their strategy is to just absolutely make the American people tired of all this, and so therefore it won't happen when it comes time to investigate them. There's no support for it.
And Scott, what you're talking about a little bit is a very, very well-known Skalinsky tactic where you blame the other side of the thing that you were exactly guilty of doing. And I was joking around with my buddy Shine when he was on last Friday about this, saying that Mueller report has now come out with a bombshell piece of finding that what the Trump campaign actually did was hire a former British spy to go meet with Russian oligarchs and Russian parliament members to garner opposition research on his opponent, Hillary Clinton, bring that information back and funnel it through an American-based lawyer firm or attorney firm or whatever, and then pay that firm for the opposition research, leak it to the media so that it would influence the election. Now, Sean and I were joking because that's exactly what the Hillary Clinton campaign did with the Steele dossier and through Fusion GPS. And it's exactly what you're saying right now, Scott, is what they were hoping to find on President Trump is exactly what Hillary Clinton did. Now, frankly speaking, it wasn't illegal as far as I understand the legal code, but they were trying to claim the way that Trump did it was illegal. And that's what's so frustrating. Scott, I'll give you the last 30 seconds here to respond to this. You're dead on right, though, man.
I don't think they were hoping to find that. I think they knew that did not exist. I think their whole purpose was to keep it from coming back on them because they were guilty of it. And you said it's a Zelensky tactic. That's a third-grade sandbox tactic. No, I didn't do that. Jimmy did that. Jimmy, well, not that. You blame Jimmy for pulling James' hair.
That's right. I didn't throw the rock. Jimmy threw the rock. That's right.
That's exactly right. It's third-grade tactic. So, but anyhow, yeah, that's good. Thank you for your
awesome. Thank you much, Scott. We'll talk to you soon. There goes Scott. Great call by Scott. Fantastic stuff. 8:57 news, traffic, weather, all that. Get your Ray's call. Singularity is inevitable. I have a great piece from Peter Haas here talking about the real reason to be afraid of artificial intelligence, black box AI technology infiltrating your attorneys, your medical professions, cars, everything that you could possibly think of. Is it coming? Should we be afraid? Not sure. Julian Assange, comments, all that stuff. Be right back.
Anyone know anything about Peter Haas? I'll back this up a little bit so we can hear where this guy's coming from. I believe what Peter Haas was saying, and I missed some of this. I'll play it back on air for us later. I believe what Peter Haas is saying is that in Wisconsin, the Wisconsin Supreme Court ruled that a version of AI does not, if a version of AI is used in a criminal case, it does not violate due process as long as the AI was used properly. And Peter Haas's problem with that is that they didn't allow the other side to look into the source code of the AI. They just said, take it for its face value. As long as the source code is used properly, the other side was saying, well, I'd like to see what the source code is so I can determine whether or not it was used properly. Yeah, stuff is conspiracy theories. What do you think? All right, here we go. Anyways, listen to this.
E-learning.
I'll be right back in a minute.
Even the developers who work on this stuff have no idea what it's doing. So that might be a great example from research. But what does this mean in the real world? The Compass criminal sentencing algorithm is used in 13 states to determine criminal recidivism, or the risk of committing a crime again after you're released. ProPublica found that if you're African American, Compass was 77% more likely to qualify you as a potentially violent offender than if you're Caucasian. This is a real system being used in the real world by real judges to make decisions about real people's lives. Why would the judges trust it if it seems to exhibit bias? Well, the reason they use Compass is because it is a model for efficiency. Compass lets them go through caseloads much faster in a backlogged criminal justice system. Why would they question their own software? It's been requisitioned by the state, approved by their IT department. Why would they question it? Well, the people sentenced by Compass have questioned it, and their lawsuit should chill us all. The Wisconsin State Supreme Court ruled that Compass did not deny a defendant due process provided it was used properly. Yet in the same set of rulings, they ruled that a defendant could not inspect the source code of Compass. It has to be used properly, but you can't inspect the source code. This is a disturbing set of rulings when taken together for anyone facing criminal sentencing. Now, you may not care about this because you're not facing criminal sentencing. But what if I told you that black box AI algorithms like this are being used to decide whether or not you can get a loan for your house, whether you get a job interview, whether you get Medicaid, and are even driving cars and trucks down the highway? Would you want the public to be able to inspect the algorithm that's trying to make a decision between a shopping cart and a baby carriage in a self-driving truck, the same way the dog-wolf algorithm is trying to decide between a dog or a wolf? Are you potentially a metaphorical dog who's been misidentified as a wolf by somebody's AI algorithm? Considering the complexity of people, it's possible. Is there anything you can do about it now? Probably not. And that's what we need to focus on. We need to demand standards of accountability, transparency, and recourse in AI systems. ISO, the International Standards Organization, just formed a committee to make decisions about what to do for AI standards. They're about 5 years out from coming up with a standard. These systems are being used now. Not just in loans, but they're being used in vehicles, like I was saying. They're being used in things like cooperative adaptive cruise control. It's funny that they call that cruise control, because the type of controller used in cruise control, a PID controller, was used for 30 years in chemical plants before it ever made it into a car. The type of controller that's used to drive a self-driving car in machine learning, that's only been used in research since 2007. These are new technologies. We need to demand the standards and we need to demand regulation, so that we don't get snake oil in the marketplace. And we also have to have a little bit of skepticism. The experiments in authority done by Stanley Milgram after World War II showed that your average person would follow an authority figure's orders, even if it meant harming their fellow citizen. In this experiment, everyday Americans would shock an actor past the point of him complaining about heart trouble, past the point of him screaming in pain, past the point of him going silent in simulated death. All because somebody with no credentials in a lab coat was saying some variation of the phrase, "The experiment must continue." In AI, we have Milgram's ultimate authority figure. We have a dispassionate system that cannot reflect, that cannot make another decision, that there is no recourse to, that will always say the system or the process must continue. Now I'm going to tell you a little story. It's about a car trip I took driving. We have a dispassionate system.
Did I cut that off too early? Possibly. It's not bad stuff, right? Well, I mean, it's bad stuff, but it's introduced to the topic at least, yeah?
Hey, I'm getting all of these real estate questions. Should I buy first or sell first? Is it a buyer's market? How do I know an agent? Is the market changing? Where should I find out the best answers? Oh, really?
They want a 70% top rate on individuals, marginal rate, 90% on corporations. Wonder how many people are going to invest in America.
Oh, Sean Hannity. You're so silly.
John Adams, I want to thank you so much for listening to Talk Radio 92.3 and AM 760. You know, we have some strong indicators that we are making a difference.
I say that this generation, or that perhaps our generation, but anyway, this generation being born now, in seconds in most countries, very shortly in most countries, and it's already happened in say, China, most European countries, United States, is the last free generation. You're born, and either immediately or within, say, a year, you are known globally. Your identity in one form or another, coming as a result of your idiotic parents plastering your name and photos over Facebook, or as a result of insurance applications or passport applications, transport on airlines, etc. You are known to all the world's major powers, all the world's major state powers, and all the world's major
I think that's a yeah, I think that's a satirical site. Yeah, the headline says where flat earthers get quality information. I'm fairly certain it's a satirical head site. I don't know. You could put spin on it and just say, hey, obviously I was putting this out there as satire to show the state of where we are currently. You know what I mean?
This could become the truth type thing. Richard throws up Babylon Bee headlines all the time on Facebook, on the Real News page.
Yeah.
Specifically to show, hey, satire is becoming more like reality. It's not so far-fetched,
Oh, okay.
whatever. I mean. .08 in the morning. Welcome back to Real News, ladies and gentlemen. Facebook. Just type in Real News Radio to your Facebook search bar. That's where we interact with the comments. Real News Radio on all the social media platforms, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, all this stuff there. That's how you catch our stuff. I have to give some credit to Roz, to Mr. John Adams, especially to Richard Spars. They're really ones that Aside from the YouTube, they're
mostly
really,
me. I get it.
Mostly,
I get it. Thank you.
Aside from the YouTube, they're really the ones that run the social media platforms here for us. That's due to Mr. Henry's. I made this decision 12 years ago to not do the social media thing. Maybe I should devote. I think I should do a Conspiracy Theory Thursday specifically devoted to why in the world does Grant, not Mr. Henry, why in the world does Grant not do the social media thing? That might be interesting for people. Maybe it wouldn't be. Either way, the point being is 99% of the time, if you see something on our social media aside from the YouTube, it's probably not Grant doing it. But whatever. Hey, let's go to Ray. He's been hanging on the longest. Introduction to Conspiracy Theory Thursday. Man, we have the whole hour I'm going to dedicate to this Conspiracy Theory Thursday. I'm going to go all over the place with this. I'm going to start saying that this is the last free generation. That's going to pull us into a clip from Peter Haas talking about the real reasons to be afraid of artificial intelligence. That is going to pull me into a headline here from, where did this go? Yeah, there we go. 57% of people polled see artificial intelligence as a threat to the human race. That, oddly enough, all of that's going to pull us into the Recode Knoxville conversation, believe it or not, I promise you. The idea being, is it a conspiracy theory to start to say that humanity at large is starting to have a problem with a lack of voice? Not just America, not just the American populist wave. Is humanity in general having a problem now in a time where it seems like we've never had more of a voice or been more connected ever before? Are we starting to have I don't know, some type of commonality between all cultures across all countries, that the people are not being heard? Do you understand what I'm saying? Yeah, we've set up systems in which we should be heard, and the systems themselves are denying our voice. The systems themselves are working against the systems that we set up these systems. I'm getting too much into it right now. Let's go to Ray, though. He's been hanging on for the longest, buddy. Singularity is inevitable. Very interesting, buddy. Ray, what's up, man? You're on with us.
Yeah, all of this technology stuff is a forward-moving, progressive thing, and this planet was built to do that, and we're exploiting it. But the problem is it a true singularity? I don't believe it is. I believe the true singularity is God. And once we start putting all of our singularity issues into this machine, expecting a response back, don't be surprised of its message, people.
Well,
because you're not going to like it.
I hate to interrupt you there, man, but I totally agree with you. Okay, the state, fact, quality, or condition of being singular, right? A point at which a function takes an infinite value, especially in space and time, when matter is infinitely dense and at the center of a black hole, or whatever you want to describe a singularity as, in a philosophical concept or a more, realistic concept or scientific concept or whatever that might mean. I think a lot of the country would follow along with you, saying no, that if anything, that singularity must ultimately go back to God. But what then do you do with the scientists that wouldn't agree with that? What then do you do with the scientists that are pursuing a sense of a singularity in the extent of, well, I don't know, man, we're trying to figure out what human consciousness, ultimately I think most people are trying to figure out what human consciousness is. Religion and sciences. Right? And if scientists are pushing to it's nothing more than a random chaotic firing of synapses, and if we can map that, we could replicate it.
Really, it's not replicatable unless through reproduction processes, and we're losing that rule completely. And those scientists know what they have to do when the proverbial poop hits the fan. All I got to do is remind people of '93 here, the winter of '93, where the majority of West Knoxville, we're talking from Cedar Bluff on west, had no power for 2 weeks. And Roberta's absolutely correct. When we put everything we have into the singularity, which is not a true singularity, AI is just listen to the name. It's artificial intelligence. It's not intelligence. It's not the true thing. So when that goes away immediately, you're going to have 90% of our population dead in 3 years.
Wow.
That's a reality that has always been played through on this planet. So the AI being a new thing, a new singularity, yeah, it's going to happen, but we've got to let it happen to us. We can't sit there and say this has got to do this for us, because then we're basically enslaving the AI to be our basic caretakers. And what's going to really happen with those machines when they do become the majority around here? You're going to see a complete breakdown of the system, because this artificial intelligence, it's 2.0 now, but it's going to be 3.0 later.
Hey, Ray, here's something I struggle with, though, man. I look back, and I like to be a student of history. I think I'm fairly adept in that. I'm not adept yet with economics. I'm open to admit that. I'm getting a lot better. But as far as it pertains to history, I look back and I think, okay, well, a lot of people said the same thing about the printing press. A lot of people said the same thing about the cotton gin. You know, are we in a situation where we're having these apocalyptic sort of predictions in the future that are never really going to come to fruition, much like they did with the cotton gin? It's going to wipe out total industries. Maybe it did, but those people found jobs elsewhere. It's going to wipe out total industries, and they went in and they destroyed machines with hammers. You know what I mean? With sledgehammers or smashing machines like we want to smash the AI right now.
Lunatics out in the hall. They're all over the place because they are not embracing the technology, which you have to do. And we control everything on this planet, people. We control everything, and that will be forever. And it don't matter what man creates, man controls. And it's always going to be that way here until the end of time. And when we get into this technology thing, when we got everybody believing that the true singularity is artificial intelligence, we're going to start seeing classes, and I wouldn't doubt if they are right now, we're going to start seeing classes that's teaching people how to live without it. Well, now, what is that? We're going to teach you a negative intelligence just so you could exist? I mean, what are you now? If I was to drop you off at Windrock Mountain, Mr. Henry, approximately 35, 40 miles from your station, would you be able to make it back in a day?
I don't know. I could hitchhike. I'm not sure. I'm not necessarily sure.
Absolutely. Whatever resources are out there, you could do it. But I'm afraid 90% of the people cannot. They would be lost. They'd end up in Atlanta first, probably.
Well, this is Conspiracy Theory Thursday, Ray, but let me draw back a little bit more to something that may or may not actually be happening right now. Let's say that you get arrested, I don't know, for some criminal charge. Doesn't matter what the criminal charge is. Let's say you get arrested for some criminal charge, okay? And they pull you in front of a courtroom, and instead of a state prosecutor coming, and I'll put it this way, instead of a human being coming and prosecuting you, what they decide to use is this newly developed black box AI technology. It's some algorithm or it's some source code that goes through the entirety of all case law, all case precedent pertaining to the state, or let's say you're in federal court, it goes through federal. You get where I'm going with this, okay? Let's say it's not a human being prosecuting you, it's an AI, and at the end of it, it says this, not only is this person prosecutable, but he's actually guilty of the crime, pits it to a judge, and the judge says, yeah, okay, that does not necessarily violate due process, all right? Now, then the judge says as long as that technology, as long as that source code is used and implemented properly, it doesn't violate your due process. Well, your attorney, like you would think, would argue, well, hang on. I have to figure out what that source code is first. I would like to look into that source code first to figure out if that actually did violate my due process, because I don't even know what the source code is. I can't speak to a human. I can't cross-examine the source code. I would like to look into it. The judge says, no. That's not necessary for you to see the source code. What's necessary is for you to understand that your due process was not violated by an AI prosecuting you as opposed to a human being. Would you have a problem with that?
Absolutely. Oh my gosh. Because what's your decision in that judgment case is already made. Before you even committed the crime, it's already made. So to go up there and fight it in that scenario, you might be able to create a stink inside that courtroom, but you're not going to win that battle. So what you do is you pull back to the rest of the troops that are locked up because they got caught in a parameter set intelligence. It's an artificial intelligence. They got caught in the snare. And they go in there, and then eventually those numbers get so high that the elite are going to have to do something with them.
And then we got a Minority Report situation where, you're charged with murder before you actually pull the knife out type thing. Right?
Yes. I mean, we are all guilty before the crime is even committed. So what are we doing here?
Yeah.
Are we actually getting smarter, or are we not seeing it happen? Because to the Dems, just off the last 2 hours, rock solid reporting, Mr. Henry, commentary, rock solid commentary, because these callers at any given time could bring a topic to you, and you have got a conversation started, sir. I congratulate you. Thank you for bringing that to Knoxville. But my advice to the Dems with all this BS about a true force in our government, I give McCain, God rest his soul, and Hillary both this advice. Do nothing, and you will gain trust. My example is the Republicans. For the past 18 years, they have done nothing. At least they haven't lost trust. They haven't lost it. So once they start doing nothing about these things that they know is a losing battle, the AI is already set. President Trump is our president. It's set.
Yeah,
Those are the parameters, people.
That's actually, I was talking to Facebook about this off air, and the terrestrial audience didn't get much of this when our buddy Bill said something to the effect of what the Democrats are trying to do with this impeachment talk is not necessarily push impeachment, not literally push impeachment. What they're trying to do is get out in front of the IG Horowitz report. They're trying to get out in front of the Nunes indictments that are being given to Barr now. Get out in front of all the other stuff I listed in the last hour. My response to Bill was, well, it's very interesting because if that's the Democrat play, what does Trump do then? Does he just withhold? As you're saying right now, does he just do nothing and just let Democrats fall flat on their face with this impeachment stuff? Because he knows they have nothing. I mean, he could technically play this out to where all this stuff we want to see, the Woods trial, the Carter Page surveillance, the unredacted FISA court warrants, the IG horror, he could hold all of that until 2020 and just let Dems fall on their face, and then we want to have true legitimate justice, do it in a sense where it's not going to be spun as...
All welcomed, Mr. Henry. All of it is welcomed because bring it on. That's going to give us some more days of real news instead of this no news we're getting right now because the Dems aren't bringing it. They're not bringing impeachment. They're not doing it. It's a lie.
I hear you. Hey, Ray, buddy, I always appreciate hearing from you, man. We'll talk to you soon.
You got it. Bye.
Hey, a very strange place to start when I come back, but I'm hopefully going to tie this all together. Here's the headline from KnoxTNToday.com. KnoxTNToday.com. This is by Sandra Clark. Danger ahead. Danger ahead for Marshall Stare. Danger ahead for Marshall Stare. Mayor Madeline Rogero has lobbed a grenade at Mayor wannabe Stare. Rogero is pushing ahead with a vote on rezoning every parcel of land in the city proposal called Recode Knoxville at a special city council meeting on 3 p.m. Tuesday, May 14th. As a member of city council, Stare must vote on Recode. His opponents are not in the council and do not have to vote on Recode. The idea being is that one person that wants to become the next mayor is inevitably going to make this an election issue when the other people don't have to make this an election issue. You see where this is going? And I'm going to play this into Conspiracy Theory Thursday by saying, have the people lost a voice? Have we lost our voice? Are we about to lose our voice even more to AI technology taking over? That scenario that I presented to Ray about an AI prosecuting you is not exactly a hypothetical. It happened in Wisconsin. Be right back.
There's no way I'm going to be able to style this together. If I can, it'll be swift. It'll be great. Who's texting me? Hey, that's an interesting thing for y'all, Facebook. I don't know. I've never really taken a poll on how many. I've never really gotten into this with y'all about how many of y'all. There's only 7 of you in right now, but Norm, Eric, Shine, if you're still in here. I don't know if Kelly's still in or Heather. How many of y'all consider yourself theists? Does that make sense? If I'm going to start to break this down as to theists versus atheists, and then if you consider yourself, I guess I could ask if you're agnostic, but that, in my mind, that's a totally different conversation. I won't even go into it now. But if you do consider yourself theist, would you consider yourself Christian? And next, if I'm specifically asking those, if you consider yourself Christian, I don't care what denomination that is. If you do consider yourself Christian, I was just sent this article here, churchleaders.com. Will I be fully accepted at your church as a gay man? It's by David Prince. Churchleaders.com, will I be fully accepted at your church as a gay man? And the question I'd like to know from those in the audience that consider yourselves Christian, Americans have a tendency to say that if it's legal, it is moral. You know what I'm saying? If it's illegal, it has a tendency to be immoral. Now, you get into abortion conversation, it's a very dicey topic, but I'm wondering, have Christians... are we too late to the game? After the Obergefell decision, the Supreme Court that made homosexual marriage legal at a national level, should Christians have developed a talking point about what to do specifically with that article churchleaders.com. Will I be fully accepted at your church as a gay man? Have we lost the ability to speak on that? And I know most of you are going to say, no, we'll never lose the ability. We always have to stand for biblical truth. That's true. I get it. But I guess what I'm really saying is, should Christians have developed a more compassionate way to bring this topic up and a more compassionate way to get to the ultimate answer of that? Will I be fully accepted at your church as a gay man prior to the Obergefell decision? Much like right now, dealing with marijuana legalization. My personal opinion, churches need to tackle the marijuana issue decades ago. The transgender issue. Dude, no church anywhere is giving a biblical, if you know of one, please show me. I'm needing to find what the church's approach to transgender identification is. I can't find it. The scriptural approach to transgender identification, I can't find it. Some of these issues, I think the church is doing a very bad idea, a very bad job of getting out in front of. Anyways, back to this stuff. Define accepted. I don't know. I think that would be different for each church, but accepted I would think means first to visit, second membership, third serving in the church, fourth a pastoral role. I think that would be.
All right. Okay.
It's called iRobot.
Okay, Roz. iRobot. All right. Hey, I'm not sure who's on line 1. Line 2 and 3 are open if you want to call in. Crumple's call number 865-888-TALK. That's 865-888-8255. The Crown Plaza call number. CTT, Conspiracy Theory Thursday. Why am I starting with a headline right here talking about local politics? Hopefully it'll make sense to you. Danger ahead for Marshall Stair. This is authored by Sandra Clark. Came out today. Multiple people sent me this. Kelly on Facebook, some other folks on the realnewsradio@gmail.com, realnewsradio@gmail.com. Mayor Madeline Ruggiero has lobbed a grenade at Mayor wannabe Marshall Stair. Hopefully I'm pronouncing that name correctly. I'm fairly certain I am. Ruggiero is pushing ahead with a vote on rezoning every parcel of land in the city, a proposal called Recode Knoxville. At a special city council meeting at 3 p.m. Tuesday, May 14th in the main assembly room of the city council building. Now, one final push. Much like Recode Michael says, let's try and get 300-400 people to show up to this thing and actually make us think about it. Let's try and actually get the Knox News Sentinel or some other quote-unquote major publication in this area to report on this. It's not enough for just us and Knox TN today to do it. I mean, great stuff that I think we're all doing here, but let's be real. Going on, saying, as a member of City Council, Stair must vote on Recode. His opponents are not on this council and do not have to vote for it. It's a vote he cannot win. Recode is still under construction. Former City Council member Dick Della Volpe has been following Recode Knoxville on Knox TN today for a while. He says, quote, the mayor wants no more delay, even though several City Council members have asked for more time to review the redraft that's not yet released. And apparently the last workshop has already been done. So May 14th is the dead day. Led by Gerald Green, Executive Director of Knox Planning, formerly Metropolitan Planning Commission. Planners have held multiple meetings, gathering input from residents and redrafting the plan. The most recent redraft has not been released by Green and the city's Chicago-based consultant, Camaros. Recode is a legacy for Ruggiero, who holds a degree from the University of Tennessee Graduate School of Planning. In 8 years, Ruggiero has revamped Cumberland Avenue and promoted revitalization in southern and South Knoxville, including support for the urban wilderness and stopping the extension of the James White Parkway. She sponsored open street events, public transit, and bike routes. Plans are underway to revitalize Magnolia Avenue, North Broadway, and Central Street. Planners like the plan. Now, Recode proponents argue that the local zoning ordinances have not been overhauled in 60 years. The plan generally supports higher residential densities, especially near major connecting streets, and urban concepts such as pocket parks and pedestrian connectivity. So why in the world am I starting with the Recode thing locally? Because the sense that I get The sense that I get from this audience is slightly akin to what Julian Assange is talking about right now.
I say that this generation, or that perhaps our generation, but anyway, this generation being born now, in seconds in most countries, very shortly in most countries, and it's already happened in say, China, most European countries, the United States, is the last free generation. You were born, and either immediately or within, say, a year, you're known globally. Your identity in one form or another, coming as a result of your idiotic parents plastering your name and photos over Facebook, or as a result of insurance applications or passport applications, transport on airlines, etc. You are known to all the world's major powers, all the world's major state powers, and all the world's major commercial powers. That's a very different situation for individuals to be in than they have previously been in. That a small child now, in some sense, has to negotiate its relationship with all the world's major powers. Of course, in practice, it can't do anything. Its parents are not managing that negotiation. But
Did you hear that? Did you hear that? One more time. One more time.
Powers. Of course, in practice, it can't do anything. Its parents are not managing that negotiation. But it puts us in I think, a very different position.
Do you understand what he's saying? There's a little bit more to this clip I may want to get to that brings us in more into Conspiracy Theory Thursday, more into the AI takeover. But at least to start with, and why it ties to the Recode Knoxville, is a little bit of what Julian Assange just said. That we are now known simply sort of by a number. That we're nothing more than just sort of a cog in this major machine. And maybe we're not even cog. Maybe we're not even necessary. But some people pertaining to this Recode Knoxville stuff feel like it's a child trying to negotiate with their parent. And what Julian Assange is actually saying is that there is no such thing as a child negotiating with their parents. That is not a negotiation. That is a dictatorship. Now, that's not what I'm saying Recode Knoxville is necessarily. What I'm saying is that some people that call into the show get the sense that that's what it feels like, that it's a child trying to negotiate with a parent who never has any real intention of negotiating with the child because they don't have to. That's what I'm starting to feel. And it's weird how this is seeped down from the top down as opposed to a grassroots evolution upwards.
Well, it is. It's just feeding you a little bit. You don't have to tell the whole truth.
Right?
You don't have to tell the whole truth.
Right.
Right.
But it didn't always used to be this way locally, Ross. That's what I'm saying. It starts nationally with Trump recognizing something of, dude, we're losing. And now I've never expected did this come to East Tennessee, to my little cove here, my little enclave of Knoxville, to where now we feel like we're not having a voice anymore, but it's become localized. Mm-hmm. Maybe Ickley's responsible for that. I don't know. But Julian Assange is touching on something that's flying at 50,000 feet, and I never expected the Knoxvillians to allow it to trickle all the way down to the 2-foot level of now. Now some Knoxvillians are thinking, am I a child?
Well, what if it's not coming down and being led by someone but something?
See? And now when Stimpy goes and tries to talk about, Agenda 2030 being put in, these people are saying, it's nonsense. It's absolute nonsense. The Ickley's not trying to push something over on you. Well, I don't care if you believe that Ickley is trying to push something over on you. It's not the point. The point is that I would venture to say that Recode Knoxville, Recode Michael, Stimpy, JB, whoever else might feel like they're a child trying to have a negotiation with a parent, the child being the Knoxvillian, the parent being city council or MPC or whoever. And, of course, I'm going to blow this up much more with AI. That's what we're going to get into for Conspiracy Theory Thursday. But you see how this all, the feeling that I'm trying to develop here, the mentality that I think this all going on? 9:32, hit this break. Stimpy's on hold for us right now as well. Be right back.
Being city council or MPC or whoever. And, of course, I'm going to blow this up much more with AI. That's what we're going to get into for Conspiracy Theory Thursday.
C-double-T.
The rise of the machines.
Da-da-da.
Who here is scared of killer robots?
Aw, y'all scared of killer robots?
I am. I used to work in UAVs, unmanned aerial vehicles. And all I could think seeing these things...
That means you used to work for Obama. Yeah, you get it? Hillary thought it was funny. Come on.
Is that someday somebody is going to strap a machine gun to these things and they're going to hunt me down in swarms.
Well, you don't need a machine gun for that. You know, we've already been doing that for a while.
I work in robotics at Brown University, and I'm scared of robots. Actually, I'm kind of terrified. But can you blame me? Ever since I was a kid, all I've seen are movies that portray the ascendance of artificial intelligence and our inevitable conflict with it. 2001: A Space Odyssey, The Terminator, The Matrix, and the stories they tell are pretty scary. Rogue bands of humans running away from super intelligent machines. That scares me. From the hands, it seems like it scares you as well. I know it is scary to Elon Musk. But, you know, we have a little bit of time before the robots rise up.
Yeah, a little bit.
Robots like the PR2 that I have in my initiative, they can't even open the door yet. So in my mind,
dumb old robots can't even open doors, man.
This discussion of super intelligent robots is a little bit of a distraction.
What time on May 14th? Oh yeah. Wait. Tomorrow. Did we ever decide if it was tomorrow or tomorrow? Tomorrow. I'm gonna call you tomorrow. We can just call you Miss Brown on Facebook. I don't care. I don't know if you were joking about the thing of what time, but that is, even asking that question points to yet. Well, I'm going to do this on air. Even asking that question points to the problem that I was pointing out. The original time for this meeting on May 14th was supposed to be 5 p.m. I'm not exactly sure the reason why. There's probably something that explains this, but they pushed it back to 3 p.m. You fill in the blank, which is why I thought you were joking to pull my attention to they had set it for 5 so people can get off work and make it there in time, I suppose. Then they pushed it back to 3.
From something far more insidious that is going on with AI systems across the country. You see, right now there are people, doctors, judges, accountants, who are getting information from an AI system and treating it as if it was information from a trusted colleague.
Yup.
It's this trust that bothers me.
Yup.
Not because of how often AI gets it wrong. AI researchers pride themselves in accuracy on results. It's how badly it gets it wrong when it makes a mistake that has me worried. These systems do not fail gracefully. So let's take a look at what this looks like. This is a dog that has been misidentified as a wolf by an AI algorithm. The researchers wanted to know, why did this particular husky get misidentified as a wolf? So they rewrote the algorithm to explain to them the parts of the picture it was paying attention to when the AI algorithm made its decision. In this picture, what do you think it paid attention to? What would you pay attention to? Maybe the eyes, maybe the ears, the snout. This is what it paid attention to.
Get out of here. All right, so this is what he did. He showed a picture of a wolf, which was, the face of the wolf takes up 95% of it's that zoomed in. There's a bit of surrounding behind it that's snow-capped background, right? I don't know if it's on the edge of a mountain or something like that. But again, take my word for it that the face of this wolf or dog or whatever it is 95% of it. And he said, what would you pay attention to? The ears, the snout, the fangs, whatever. What the AI apparently paid attention to was the other 5% of the background.
Mostly the snow in the background of the picture. You see, there was bias in the data set that was fed to this algorithm. Most of the pictures of wolves were in snow. So the AI algorithm conflated the presence of absence of snow for the presence or absence of a wolf. The scary thing about this is the researchers had no idea this was happening until they rewrote the algorithm to explain itself. And that's the thing with AI algorithms, deep learning, machine learning. Even the developers who work on this stuff have no idea what it's doing. So that might be a great example from research. Something far more. So in my
Conspiracy Theory Thursday about Julian Assange talking about this sort of coercion that humanity has now to place itself into a system. And that system could be anything from Amazon to the American government. It doesn't matter. The idea, though, is that people are starting to lose a sense of humanity. They're starting to lose a sense of individualism. They're starting to lose a sense of why their existence matters, or even if they really genuinely exist at all. I know I'm getting a bit, out there. But I brought up this idea of Recode Knoxville, and I was saying, okay, I'm seeing the wave of populism go, and it's a bit of a conspiracy to say that this is actually trickling down through ICLEI and whatnot. But hear what I'm saying, okay? A member of the city council is being forced to vote on this, making this an election issue for him, because he's going to run for mayor, and it's not an election issue for the other mayors, other mayoral candidates, sorry. And to prove my point yet one more time about this infiltration of the systems that man has created that are now taking over man's existence. That's the reason why it's Conspiracy Theory Thursday. The reason why it's important to focus on, and the reason why it lends to Knoxvillians in particular feeling like they have a lack of voice in these situations is beautifully illustrated by a question that Tamara asked us on Facebook, or Tamara. Sorry, we need to. Tamara, call down here and let us know which way it's pronounced. 865-888-TALK, 865-888-8255. She asked me on Facebook, what time is this meeting on this vote on May 14th for Recode Knoxville? And I thought she was joking with me a little bit. I thought she was joking with me because that's an aspect of the story that I totally glossed over that Recode Michael called in about yesterday. Recode Michael called in yesterday and said, hey, by the way, this meeting is being held at 3 p.m. on Tuesday, May 14th. Now Tamara, obviously she wanted to know so that we could set up a press pass thing. She wants to know if we're going to do some live coverage, some man on the street stuff. I think that's a great conversation, great idea for the show. But it's being held at 3 p.m. on Tuesday, and if what Recode Michael is saying is true, it was originally meant to be held at 5 p.m. on Tuesday. Now, yet one more time, this goes to my side of the argument of it has the feeling. It has the feeling of a child negotiating with a parent. That originally it was supposed to be at 5, so people that actually hold jobs could get off right in time to show up for this vote. Well, some reason they pushed it back to 3, and I'm sure there's some articulable reason that the city council has to push it back to 3. I'm sure. Now, I'm not necessarily saying that sarcastically. They could probably put forward a reason as to why they pushed it back 2 hours. But to the individual that doesn't like Recode already, they would say that has another feeling of my voice not being heard. Now, I want to go to Peter Haas, because this brings us into Stimpy's conversation about tying a Recode to AI as well. Get what Peter Haas is saying here about yet one more reason to think that your voice, a human's voice, that's the whole thing why I'm trying to tie this to Recode, a human's voice not being genuinely considered. Peter Haas, by the way, he's the Associate Director of Brown University of Humanity-Centered Robotics Initiative. He's the co-founder and CEO of ExactSense. He's a UAV manufacturer, mapping and autonomous navigation. He's an expert in that. He founded the AIDG, a small hardware enterprise accelerator in emerging markets. He's received both the TED and Echoing Green fellowships. The point being is the guy knows what he's talking about as far as it pertains to robotics and as far as it pertains to the philosophy behind robotics. Listen to this guy.
In my mind, this discussion of super intelligent robots is a little bit of a distraction from something far more insidious that is going on with AI systems across the country. You see, right now, there are people, doctors, judges, accountants, who are getting information from an AI system and treating it as if it was information from a trusted colleague. It's this trust that bothers me.
Yes, yes.
Not because of how often AI gets it wrong.
Right.
AI researchers pride themselves in accuracy on results. It's how badly it gets it wrong when it makes a mistake that has me worried. These systems do not fail gracefully.
So you hear what he's saying? They don't fail often, but what they do, when they do, they fall flat on their face.
Let's take a look at what this looks like.
All right, when he says take a look at what this looks like, it's a picture of either a dog or a wolf. We don't necessarily know what it is yet. Huskies have a tendency to look like wolves. Fine. It's a picture of a dog, possible wolf, black coat, white face, pointed triangular ears, snout, fangs. The dog takes up about 90 to 95% of the picture. It's really zoomed in on the dog's face. Continue.
This is a dog that has been misidentified as a wolf by an AI algorithm.
You wouldn't think that's problematic. That's not a crazy...
Researchers
right?
want to know, why did this particular husky get misidentified as a wolf? So they rewrote the algorithm to explain to them the parts of the picture it was paying attention to when the AI algorithm made its decision.
Okay, now when he says what he's about to say of what the AI was paying attention to, think about what we preach all the time on this show. The reason why myself and Shine and my boys have such a problem with Amazon, the reason why we have such a problem with 97% of the internet research is taking place on Google and YouTube alone, the Alphabet Corporation owning both of those. The reason why we have a problem every single time Facebook or Twitter or any one of their CEOs is asked about the alleged supposed bias in their algorithms, they say there is no bias because there's no subjective component to the algorithm itself. Think about what this guy is about to say, and then think about the most searched term on Google during the midterms was who should I vote for? Not how should I vote, not where should I go vote, who should I vote for? Listen to what this guy's about to say.
In this picture, what do you think it paid attention to? What would you pay attention to? Maybe the eyes, maybe the ears,
reasonable.
the snout.
I would. The dog.
This is what it paid attention to.
All right, now, I hate doing this on radio because I can't explain to you how mind-blowing what he just did was. When he says this is what it paid attention to, it cut away the entire picture except for 5% of the background. It did not even pay attention to the dog. In trying to, the AI, trying to determine if the picture was a dog or a wolf, it didn't pay attention to the animal. It didn't look at the snout or the fangs, or it didn't look at the triangle-shaped ears. It didn't look that it even had fur. It paid attention to 5% of the background behind the dog. Listen to this.
Mostly the snow in the background of the picture. You see, there was bias in the data set that was fed to this algorithm.
Boom!
Most of the pictures of wolves were in snow. So the AI algorithm conflated the presence of absence of snow absence of a wolf.
Yeah.
The scary thing about this is the researchers had no idea this was happening.
They keep letting it go on until it became such a big problem that they actually had to address it. And by the time you have to address it, you have no idea how many problematic ripples that has caused in its wake.
Until they rewrote the algorithm to explain itself.
Oh, thank you. Good.
And that's the thing with AI algorithms, deep learning, machine learning. Even the developers who work on this stuff have no idea what it's doing.
All right, now Snippy, give me. I'm gonna let you go for the last, the final segment all by yourself. Tying this back to Recode, but okay, it's not that big of a problem when we're talking about a wolf as opposed to a dog. Listen to what this guy's about to say.
So that might be a great example from research, but what does this mean in the real world?
Yeah, man.
The Compass criminal sentencing algorithm is used in 13 states.
Ray, it wasn't hypothetical.
Criminal recidivism, or the risk of committing a crime again after you're released.
Ray, the hypothetical I put to you was not a hypothetical at all, buddy. Oh, no.
due process,
Uh-oh.
provided it was used properly.
Uh-oh.
In the same set of rulings, they ruled the defendant could not inspect the source code of
Uh-oh.
It has to be used properly, but you can't inspect the source code.
All right, we got to hit this break. You see where I'm going with this? All right, so I brought this up in a sense of Conspiracy Theory Thursday, and I don't usually do this where I draw conspiracy into something that is actually a legitimate fear of mine. But I feel like Peter Haas did a reasonable job of presenting that. It's not necessarily a problem when Google's algorithm or any other algorithm is mistaking a dog for a wolf or a wolf for a dog. It becomes a major problem. We're talking about your criminal liability. It becomes, in my opinion, a very, very big problem as well when we're talking about the supposed subjective bias written into these algorithms if you're Googling who you should vote for. 9:49. Does the people even have a voice anymore? Be right back.
All right, it worked out. It wasn't a terribly crazy way to tie recode to AI. I mean, it sort of is. Anyways, Facebook. Look, now there's 90 on there. Back to what I was talking about before.
Between Siri and Alexa.
Really? Good Lord. How long is it?
I'm not. Alexa goes first, then Siri, and then they keep going. But I'll only do Alexa and Siri, and that's it because she says a bad word after that. So okay. Alexa's cursing.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's do it. I want to give Stimpy enough time.
Huh?
I just want to give Stimpy enough time. He'll have enough time though. I'm trying to speak softly on this mic because it
don't. It irritates me.
It distorts the audio though for Facebook.
Oh,
not change depending on the economy. The only difference is that when things are going.
No, it irritates me.
Anyways, Facebook. What I was asking Facebook before for the other two of y'all that are in here now was just sent an article. Oh, gee, Pudi, where'd it go? Will I be fully accepted at your church as a gay man? This is from churchleaders.com. I was asking the question of, given that the Obergefell decision is already said and done with the Supreme Court, as the Christian church, the Christian religion, Christian denomination, have we lost that conversation? How should the Christian church reform that conversation in the light of it being legal now? You know what I'm saying?
Wake me up. Take me out of this cave, y'all. The problem with the whole Platonic cave theory that I've never had a chance to address here before is, we've never addressed what happens to the person that wakes up from the cave and then is charged with going back into the cave and saving those people from a false reality. The people in the cave don't want to believe in reality. They prefer the bliss of the blissful ignorance. They prefer it. It's more comfortable. The whole story ends by the hero being destroyed by the populace. The person that's trying to speak truth to the cave dwellers to show them this is not real. Please wake up. My existence is not just better, it's more beneficial for you. The people in the cave turn on him. They destroy him. Not only are they not ready for it, they don't want it. They prefer to be told what is truthful in spite of it actually being truthful. I personally believe this is what's happening with the Democrat Party right now. I personally believe they've set up a situation where Trump must have colluded with the Russians, and now you're going back into the cave, and somebody's trying to say, William Barr or Mueller's trying to say he didn't actually collude with the Russians, but they don't want it to be true. So if the Democrats are the ones that are saying it's not true, they will turn on them. populace. Some of the populace does not want this to be true, that you don't have a voice in Recode Knoxville. The populace does not want this to be true, that it may be that AI is removing a sense of your own humanity. They will turn on the truth tellers. What do you do about that? I don't know. You have to be willing to be a martyr. Let's go to Stimpy. Stimpy, buddy, I won't even interrupt. I'll give you the last 4 minutes of the show here, man. Go ahead.
Wake Me Up Inside. Actually, a very good reference for a piece of music I was wanting to mention to you a while back. I heard there was a secret chord that David played, and it pleased the Lord, but you don't really care for music, do you? That story, the lines from that song are in reference to King Solomon and King David. King Solomon fell ill, and he called upon his good friend, King David, who was a musician. And he came to him, and he healed him through the art of music. Whenever you look within the social constructs of the confines of our mind, of our society, of our reality, this reality is being constantly redeveloped by our perceptions and by the powers that be. People will argue if dinosaurs even exist. There's a lot of evidence to support that the fossils are actually manufactured out of China. But now you can actually get into, let's get a little bit more recently with encyclopedias. There is the lost civilization of Tartaria. And then you can look at the Tartarian origins of the churches that have been vandalized, that have been destroyed, the history that is lost. Notre Dame, ancient pieces of work that had things today we cannot understand the purpose they serve. And when you start working with Elon Musk, that gentleman scares the living daylights out of you. But at the same time, he states that we live in an augmented reality. Whenever you look at the reality of the youth, the video games and these augmented realities that are becoming day by day more and more popular and stronger, what are they trying to do? They are trying to, in a realistic fashion, mimic reality to give you an escape from reality. So with all logic, the next step would to be create your own reality where you can be free. And now you can actually look into, like I said, Tartaria. And then you can get into, because that was in encyclopedias, in maps, in full disclosure, with a whole lot of writing about this in our past. That was as recently as 30 years ago. You could verify its existence. Today, it does not exist. Whenever you look at the history of Atlantis, the civilization became so advanced, they consumed themselves with their own selfishness. They lost the connection of the fellow man. They lost the sense of empathy. They lost the connect from one brother or one sister to another. It's also stated that by several different theories that we did not even have to use words to communicate. We were that advanced.
Hey, buddy, Stimpy, we got to end it there, man. I'll say this on the way out. Embrace your fellow human today. You know what I mean? Hug a Democrat. Have your brother and sister. Call your mom. Call your dad. Feel good about it. Stimpy, buddy, we always love hearing from you, man. I'll talk to you soon.
Yes. There was more I was wanting to get to, but I guess we'll try to come back to it on another day.
All right,
because it all
Stimpy.
kind of ties together.
I hear you.
Thanks.
Hey, there goes Stimpy, 9:58. News, traffic, weather, all that. Glenn Beck coming up. Be back tomorrow doing it big for another edition of Banath, Best Audience in the Nation Appreciation Friday. Be back.
Feel those chemicals, huh? All right, Facebook. Y'all are the best in the West, in the East, and other places. I'm going to end it there. Yeah, I guess that's it. Cool. I love y'all. Peace.